Chapter 465. Li Changsheng had punched the python until it was unknown if it was dead or alive. Everyone present looked at him in awe. He was just too strong. This ordinary youth, who no one took seriously, was no different from a god in everyone's eyes. So, it's actually the number one person in the world. To think that I was arrogant. Bai Chan smiled bitterly and bowed. Thank you for saving me, sir. If you have any instructions in the future, just say the word, and I'll definitely do my best. Indeed, for Bai Chun, it was equivalent to saving her life for nothing today. If Li Changsheng hadn't taken action, he would have been sucked dry long ago. Li Changsheng was his savior. It was said that a drop of water would be repaid with a gushing spring, let alone a life-saving favor that was greater than the heavens. You're welcome. Li Changsheng smiled faintly. When they first met, Bai Chen only felt that he was very arrogant and a little unruly. But after this matter, Li Changsheng admired him a little. To be able to step forward in a time of danger and choose to hold back the python was a very good character. I didn't expect you to be so powerful. Lu Ruiyun and the others return at this moment. Senior, you're powerful. You killed the python with a raise of your hand, making us admire you. May I know which sect you are from? Lu Ruiyun was far less smart than Bai Chun. She still hadn't guessed Li Changsheng's identity. I'm the leader of the Sword Alliance in Middle-earth. Li Changsheng spoke indifferently. Lu Ruiyun's body immediately trembled. You're the Li Changsheng who defeated the Dragon God Temple's Temple Master? Her eyes were already gloomy. It hadn't been long since Li Changsheng's battle with the Dragon God Temple's Temple Master, Mufeng, and his reputation was at its peak. All the cultivation sects in Miaojiang were discussing his deeds. I didn't expect to meet Mr. Li here. I heard that Mr. Li bestowed the witchcraft cult's daughter, Su Yu, a set of witchcraft martial arts. I want to ask Mr. Li to bestow me a set of cultivation techniques. With that said, she looked at Li Changsheng expectantly. However, as soon as she finished speaking, everyone around her was dumbfounded. At that time, you even spoke ill of Mr. Li. Now, you're asking Mr. Li for a cultivation technique. Do you have any shame? Lu Cheng was the first to jump out. Bai Chen also revealed an awkward expression. The two of them were neither relatives nor friends, yet the moment they opened their mouths, they asked for the other's cultivation technique. This behavior really made one speechless. As expected, Li Changsheng shook his head. My cultivation method didn't come from nowhere. The reason why I gave it to the sorcerer cult is because I owe the sorcerer cult. As for you, it's impossible for me to pass it to you. What? Being rejected by Li Changsheng on the spot, Lu Ruiyun's face immediately turned ugly. Mr. Li, I'm sincerely asking you for a cultivation method. Can't you be kind enough to give me a set? Do you think it's easy for a woman like me to ask you? How can you be so heartless? I'm hard-hearted? Li Changsheng was completely speechless as he shook his head. It's not that I'm heartless. It's just that you're too thick-skinned. With that said, he turned around and walked toward the spot where the golden python had landed. The reason why he followed them this time wasn't because he wanted to help the people of Miaojiang out of kindness. He was only here for the python. Upon seeing Li Changsheng turn around, Lu Ruiyun's eyes immediately revealed a look of resentment. She shouted, Well done, Li Changsheng. Since you're so cold, I'll make you regret it one day. With that said, she turned around and left angrily. The Yin family's eldest son, and Huai, originally wanted to go forward and chat with Lu Ruiyun when he saw that she was a cultivator and had an otherworldly aura. However, before he could speak, he was pushed aside by Lu Ruiyun. Mr. Li, I'll remember the favor of saving my life. Farewell. Bai Chun bowed to Li Changsheng. Li Changsheng waved his hand without looking back. Only then did he turn and leave. The remaining representatives from the various factions wanted to step forward to greet Li Changsheng, but Lu Cheng waved his hand and dismissed them. In the end, only in Yulin and in Huai were left. Master Lu, what's Mr. Li's background? He's actually so powerful, and Yulin felt like he was dreaming. Even the two inherited teachings disciples of the cloud, clear holy land, couldn't withstand a single blow from that terrifying python. Yet, it had been easily defeated by Li Changsheng. Mr. Li is the #1 person in the current cultivation world. Not to mention the 2 inherited teachings disciples. Even the elders of their sect have to be respectful when they see him. At this point, Lu Cheng couldn't help but raise his chest. Understood, understood. Then, can I invite Mr. Li to my house as a guest? And Yulin asked carefully. Lu Cheng looked back at Li Changsheng and shook his head. Mr. Li is rushing back to the capital. I originally wanted to introduce Mr. Li to you yesterday, but you and your father disdain Mr. Li. How can you be cold to a figure like Mr. Li? Upon hearing Lu Cheng's words, and Yulin and his son looked at each other and saw regret in each other's eyes. Although the Yin family was the descendant of the chieftain, they had long lost the prosperity of their ancestors. Li Changsheng had a noble status. If they could befriend him, it would be greatly beneficial to them. Unfortunately, there was no medicine for regret in this world. At this moment, Li Changsheng had already walked to the red-robed python. He saw a huge body lying in a pile of rubble. Its body was somewhat deformed. A 1,000-year-old, half-mythical beast body produces a majestic aura. If it's tempered with the capital's dragon aura, it will definitely evolve into a true mythical beast. It can protect my friends and intimidate my enemies. As Li Changsheng spoke, he raised his palm. The python immediately slowly stood up from the ground. It possesses the bloodline of a true dragon. If it becomes my subordinate today, it might be able to attain the Tao and become a true divine dragon in the future. As soon as Li Changsheng said that, he waved his hand. The python's body constantly shrank until it was about 3 inches long. He then stored it in his sleeve. As Li Changsheng and Lu Cheng embarked on their journey back to the capital, Lu Riyun and her senior brother, Bai Chun, also began returning to the Cloud Clarity Holy Land. Along the way, Lu Riyun had a gloomy expression. As she was rather beautiful, very few men had rejected her directly since she was young. This resulted in her having a selfish personality. Junior sister, you don't have to be too angry. The cultivation method is a secret in every sect. How can Mr. Li casually tell you? Didn't he just save your life? Why do you keep mentioning Mr. Li? Why don't you betray your master and just follow Mr. Li? As soon as Lu Ruiyun finished speaking, Bai Chen's expression changed drastically. Junior sister, you can't spout nonsense. If this reaches master or the sect master's ears, it will be terrible. Lu Riyun was stunned for a moment before she suddenly smiled. Junior sister, have you thought it through? Bai Chun heaved a sigh of relief. He knew that Lu Riyun was a very stubborn person and would easily get into a dead end. I have indeed thought it through. Didn't Li Changsheng bestow the witchcraft cult a witchcraft formulation? Since he isn't willing to bestow it to me, I'll snatch the formulation from the witchcraft cult's hands. This Li Changsheng could defeat the Dragon God Temple's temple master. The formulation he bestowed is definitely not ordinary. Senior brother Bai Chun, what do you think? Let's go to the witchcraft cult and snatch the cultivation method back. When the time comes, we can cultivate it together. It won't be long before our strength can match the top few senior brothers. Upon hearing Lu Riyun's words, Bai Chen's expression changed drastically. Junior sister, you can't have such thoughts. Ignoring the fact that the witchcraft cult has many experts, it'll be very difficult for the two of us to snatch the formulation. Even if we snatch the formulation, it was bestowed to the witchcraft cult by Mr. Li. Once Mr. Li learns of it, we won't have a good time. You're a coward. Lu Riyun snorted coldly. The witchcraft cult has a sworn enemy, the Heaven Divination cult. As long as we join forces with the Heaven Divination cult, it won't be a problem to destroy the witchcraft cult. Although Li Changsheng defeated the Dragon God Temple's temple master, the Pilyang sect has already sent all its forces to deal with him. He might not be able to live for long. Even if the Pilyang sect can't destroy him, there's another faction in Miaojiang that he definitely can't touch. Are you referring to the Weapon Grandmaster lineage? Bai Chen blurted out, his eyes filled with surprise. That's right. Lu Riyun raised her chin smugly. The Weapon Grandmaster lineage is a descendant of Qi Yu, the true ruler of Miaojiang. I have a close relationship with the Weapon Grandmaster lineage's eldest daughter. When the time comes, with the weapon grandmaster lineage helping me, what's Li Changsheng to me? This. Baichen opened his mouth and finally sighed. Upon thinking of how terrifying the weapon grandmaster lineage was, he suddenly felt worried for Li Changsheng. Chapter 466. When that Lu woman left, her face was full of resentment. I'm afraid she doesn't have any good intentions. On the plane to Beijing, Lu Cheng hesitated for a moment and said to Li Changsheng. Li Changsheng nodded. Of course I know. She's just an ant. There's no need to pay attention to her. If she dares to provoke me, I'll just kill her. Li Changsheng said indifferently. Not to mention Lu Riyun from the Yinqing sacred ground. Even her sect couldn't afford to provoke Li Changsheng. I'm worried that she has something to do with that force, Lu Cheng said with a frown. Which force? Seeing Lu Cheng's worried look, Li Changsheng couldn't help but wonder. The 6 sacred grounds of Miaojiang all bowed down to him. Was there any hidden force? There's a real ruler in Miaojiang. That's the descendant of the ancient demon god Qiyu. Even the 6 sacred grounds dare not provoke them. It's said that Qiyu and the Yinqing sacred ground have been in contact over the years. This Lu Riyun is a disciple of the Yinqing sacred ground. If she has something to do with Qiyu, it won't be good to sow discord. Seeing Lu Cheng's worry, Li Changsheng just smiled and said, she's just a descendant of the demon god Qiyu. If the demon god Qiyu comes to me personally for revenge, I'll pay attention to it. His descendant is nothing in my eyes. After a few hours on the plane, they finally returned to Beijing. Because the villa on the top of the mountain that Li Changsheng asked the big families in Beijing to build was not completed, Li Changsheng first stayed in Su Xiaolan's villa after returning to Beijing. At the same time, he used a secret method to refine the python that he brought back every day. When he just took out the python, Asa happened to see it. She was so scared that she jumped up and down. It wasn't until she saw the python do many funny things under Li Changsheng's orders that she heaved a sigh of relief. Changsheng, I heard that you've been back for a few days. Why didn't you come to see me? A voice that sounded like a silver bell drifted in. Yishuang walked in with a happy face. However, when he saw Aju standing in the hall, his eyes couldn't help but turn gloomy. Although she knew that such an outstanding man like Li Changsheng would definitely not lack women by his side, he had only left Beijing for a few days and had already brought back a woman. Moreover, she lived in the same villa as Li Changsheng. Even she did not receive such treatment. Seeing Yishuang pouting, Li Changsheng couldn't help but smile. This is the disciple of a friend of mine. She came with me to the capital this time. She has nothing to do with me. Hearing Li Changsheng's words, Yishuang heaved a sigh of relief. She smiled and said, Really? What are you trying to explain? I didn't say anything. Seeing how Yishuang was trying to cover it up, Li Changsheng couldn't help but sigh. Women. Changsheng, one of my best friends is coming back from abroad today. Can you accompany me to pick her up? She's very curious about you and wants to meet you. Sure. Li Changsheng nodded. He didn't spend much time with Yishuang when he came to Beijing. When the villa on the top of the mountain was completed, he would soon go into seclusion again. So it was good to take advantage of his rare free time to accompany her. Today, Yishuang drove a silver-gray Maserati. Sitting in the passenger seat, Li Changsheng looked at the scenery outside along the way. Yishuang's driving speed wasn't slow. It could even be described as fast as lightning. However, her driving skills were very skilled. This made people not worry that she would rear-end the car in front of her or scratch the cars around her. In the city, it was more than 100 miles per hour. After leaving the city and getting on the Ring Highway, it was easy to run more than 170 miles per hour. After 40 minutes, they arrived at Beijing's airport. After waiting for about 10 minutes at the airport gate, a beautiful woman wearing sunglasses and a light yellow short skirt walked over to Yishuang's position. Beside the woman was a tall man. He looked like a mixed blood. The bridge of his nose was very high. When he smiled, he seemed to have a special charm. Manny, I missed you so much. Yishuang directly hugged the woman and then introduced, This is my friend Li Changsheng. Could it be your boyfriend? Manny clipped the sunglasses on her hair, revealing a face that wasn't particularly beautiful but was very elegant. Yishuang's face suddenly turned red. She looked down at her toes and didn't say anything. Suddenly, Manny's eyes showed some surprise. Based on her understanding of her best friend, this was the first time she acted like a little girl. She couldn't help but look up and down at Li Changxing again. She really couldn't see any good points about the man in front of her. "Hello, I'm Fongda, Manny's boyfriend. I'm now the chief financial officer." The mixed-blood man took the initiative to reach out his hand to Li Changsheng. He was very generous and very gentlemanly. At this time, Yishuang recovered and said, "It's not easy to be the chief financial officer of a company at such a young age. Miss Yishuang, you're too kind. I often hear Manny mention you." When a man glanced at Yishuang's face, a trace of undetectable greed flashed in his eyes. He hid it very well, but it still didn't escape Li Changxing's eyes. Although the man looked very cheerful and generous, Li Changxing always felt that he was wearing a mask. "Let's go, Manny. It's not easy for you to come back. Today, I'll treat you to a meal." Yishuang was usually cold to others. Only in front of Li Changxing would she become gentle and lovely. But today, she was very cheerful and lively. This showed that her relationship with Manny was really good. That was why she could let go of her disguise and reveal her true nature. They left the airport and returned to the city. They went to a private restaurant. After the meal, Yishuang and Manny were reminiscing about the past. Fongda would occasionally chime in with a few words. He was very humorous and made the two girls laugh. Li Changsheng, on the other hand, was very well behaved. He kept his head down and ate. After the meal, he went outside to the yard and lit a cigarette. When he finished the cigarette and walked into the house, he happened to hear Fongda stand up and try to grab Yishuang's hand. "Miss Yi, my teacher is a famous spirit master. He asked me to help you get rid of the negative energy in your body." "No need." Yishuang hurriedly moved back to hide. "Miss Yi, don't be afraid." Fongda chuckled. He snapped his fingers, and Yishuang's expression instantly became dazed. "Miss Yishuang, don't be afraid. Let me take a look." He reached out to grab Yishuang again. "Why don't you get rid of the negative energy in my body first?" At this time, a cold voice sounded. Fongda's vision blurred. He saw a hateful face appear in front of him, looking at him with a playful expression. Who else could it be but Li Changsheng? Chapter 467. "Brat, how dare you ruin my plans?" Fongda's face was filled with malice. Blue smoke rose from his body and finally formed a huge skull. In that instant, the temperature in the room dropped. It was filled with a ghostly aura. "It's just a secret spiritual technique. How dare you show it off in front of me?" Li Changxing snorted. He raised his palm and slapped it down. The huge skull was smashed apart by his palm and returned to its original blue smoke state. Li Changsheng then opened his mouth and inhaled. The blue smoke was sucked into his mouth like rivers flowing into the sea. Fongda, on the other hand, took 2 steps back in shock. Tears of blood flowed from his eyes. This was a secret spiritual technique. The blue smoke was his spiritual energy. How could it be swallowed by someone else? "How dare you target my woman? You're courting death." Li Changsheng leaped across the table, stepped on the table, and pounced towards Fongda. Fongda was about to dodge, but he was too late. Li Changxing grabbed his hair and pulled him down. His knee slammed into Fongda's nose. Fongda took 3 steps back and slammed into the wall. Li Changxing continued to press forward. He grabbed Fongda's hair and pressed him to the ground. His fist hammered Fongda's cheeks. It was just a simple action of punching and retracting, but it was unusually bloody and violent. A minute later, Fongda had been punched countless times. His entire face was a bloody mess. Li Changsheng clapped his hands and stood up. At this time, both Man and I and Yishuang were still in a daze. Their eyes were empty, as if they were under a spell. Li Changsheng raised his hand and snapped his fingers. Man and I and Yishuang trembled at the same time. "What's wrong? Why do I feel like my mind is blank?" Yishuang's eyes were filled with confusion. "Fongda, what's wrong with you?" Man and I looked at Fongda's bloody face and screamed. She pounced on him and shook him a few times. Fongda didn't react. She couldn't help but look coldly at Li Changsheng. "What did you do to Fongda?" Yishuang also looked confused. I didn't do anything to him. He fell down by accident. Li Changxing shrugged. Although Man and I didn't believe it, she compared the physiques of Li Changsheng and Fangde. Then, she remembered that Fangde was usually a fitness maniac and had learned karate. He shouldn't have been beaten up like this by Li Changsheng. Only then did she skeptically call 120. After the ambulance arrived, she followed the ambulance to the hospital. On the way back, Yi Shuang looked at Li Changsheng with a smile. Changsheng, did you beat up Fangde? Why is that? Yi Shuang knew Li Changsheng's strength. He actually had bad intentions towards you. I'm already being extra merciful by not taking his life. Li Changsheng said coldly. So that's how it is. Then beating him up is too easy on him. Yi Shuang had always trusted Li Changsheng unconditionally. Don't worry, it's not that simple. Those who have been beaten by me don't just have superficial wounds. Li Changsheng smiled. You're the worst. Yi Shuang rolled her eyes at Li Changsheng. Thinking of the scene where the two of them were alone in Qingzhou, she couldn't help but blush. Man and I sent Fangde to the hospital. On the bed, Fangde finally woke up. What happened to Fangde? How did your face become like this? Hearing Man Ni's words, Fangde's entire head was wrapped in a white cloth. His expression couldn't be seen clearly, but his eyes were filled with hatred. It's your best friend's boyfriend. I must kill him. You mean that Li Changsheng? He's so small. How could he beat you? Oof. He's a martial arts expert. But I must take revenge. Hurry up and give me a phone. I'm going to call my teacher. When my teacher comes, I'll tear him into pieces. After saying that, he raised his hand to get the phone. However, he suddenly picked it up. His eyes were filled with horror. Why can't I control my palm? Why is there no response? Not only his palm, but his entire body was paralyzed. It turned out that Li Changxing's punch didn't just hit his face. It also destroyed the nerves in his brain that controlled his limbs. Now, apart from his head, Fangde's lower body was completely in a vegetative state. Fangde let out a shrill scream. Man and I, beside him, was also completely panicking. Fangde, what happened to you? After a moment of chaos, Fangde finally recognized the reality. His eyes were filled with despair. Call my teacher. I want to talk to my teacher. Only he can save me. Fangde thought of his all-powerful teacher. This was his only hope. And Fangde's matter was just a small episode for Li Changxing. Spiritual occult arts were also one of the means of cultivators. They used powerful spiritual energy to interfere with the spiritual world of others. If cultivated to the highest level, one could move the wind and clouds and shatter mountains and rivers with a thought. It was also very terrifying. However, Fangde had only learned a little. He could deal with ordinary people, but he was simply courting death when facing a powerhouse like Li Changsheng. On this day, Li Changsheng was practicing martial arts in the courtyard. Yi Haoren came to stand behind him and reported the progress of the mountaintop villa to him. They bought a mountain in the suburbs of the capital. The villa was built on the mountain, and it was almost completed. According to Yi Haoren, Li Changsheng would be able to move in at most half a month. You guys did a good job. Li Changsheng finished practicing a set of Taiji fist and sat down to drink tea with Yi Haoren. Because Yi Haoren was Yi Shuang's father, Li Changxing respected him very much. If other rich businessmen came, they wouldn't have the privilege of sitting down and drinking tea with Li Changsheng. After sending Yi Haoren off, Li Changxing's phone rang. It was by Qin Xue. After hesitating for a moment, Li Changxing picked up the phone. The other party was silent for a long time. In the end, just as Li Changxing was about to hang up, she spoke slowly. Changsheng, I'm still in the capital. Can I see you? Is there a need for us to meet? Li Changxing thought of that face and felt a slight pain in his heart. However, his face soon turned cold. I have something to talk to you about. Please. Bai Qinshue's voice sounded like she was about to cry. All right then. Send me the location of the meeting. Li Changsheng sighed. This is the last time I'm seeing you. Don't disturb me in the future. I have nothing to do with you anymore. Li Changxing hung up the phone. His eyes were shining. Bai Qinshuo suddenly wants to see me. This is obviously not normal. The Danyang sect hasn't done anything for so long. Could it be that they're threatening Bai Qinshuo? Li Changsheng shook his head. Who cares? I'll find out when I get there. At this moment, his phone screen lit up. It was a message from Bai Qinxue. The address was in the suburbs. It was not far from the villa that Yi Haoran had built for Li Changsheng. What a coincidence. I'll go take a look at the villa. Li Changsheng stuffed his phone into his pocket. After saying goodbye to Lu Chong, he went out and took a taxi to the suburbs. Chapter 468. In the back seat of the taxi, Li Changsheng was resting with his eyes closed. The phone in his pocket rang again. It was from Bai Qinxue. Changsheng, don't come to the suburbs. Someone wants to hurt you. I was possessed. I'm sorry. Bai Qinxue's voice sounded like she was about to cry. After she finished speaking, she hung up the phone. Li Changsheng's gloomy face broke into a smile. Luckily, your conscience hasn't been eaten by dogs. 10 minutes later, the taxi stopped in front of a farmhouse in the suburbs. This was where Bai Qinxue had agreed to meet Li Changsheng. Li Changsheng got out of the car and paid. After the taxi was far away, Li Changsheng pushed open the door to the farmhouse. Bai Qinxue was sitting on a stone bench in the middle of the yard. When she saw Li Changsheng walk in, she was shocked. Didn't I tell you to turn around? Why are you here? Someone wants to kill you. Li Changsheng smiled when he heard Bai Qinxue's words. It's okay. If I didn't come, they would probably vent their anger on you. The tears in Bai Qinxue's eyes gushed out in an instant. But since you came, you have to die. You don't have to be touched. I came because I have enough confidence to deal with them. I saved you out of morality, not out of love. Li Changsheng smiled. There was a teapot and a few teacups on the table. Bai Qinxue was obviously not in the mood to drink tea. The teacups were upside down. He turned the teacup over and poured himself a cup. After taking a sip, he shook his head. The tea is cold. Although it doesn't taste good, it can still quench my thirst. Bai Qinxue did not expect Li Changsheng to be in the mood to drink tea. She could not help but say anxiously, "Hurry up and leave. They are lying in ambush nearby. If you don't leave now, it will be too late. These people are like ghosts. I know you know martial arts, but you can't deal with them." Hearing Bai Qinxue's words, Li Changsheng smiled and said, "Sit down. Since I dare to come, I'm not afraid of them." "Why are you so stubborn?" Bai Qinxue looked at her watch and grew more and more anxious. In the end, she grabbed Li Changsheng's sleeve and tried to drag Li Changsheng out. However, after a few tugs, Li Changsheng sat there without moving. "The taxi has already left. I'm afraid it's too late, even if I escape now." Hearing Li Changsheng's words, Bai Qinxue let go of his sleeve. Her eyes filled with despair. "You're too stupid. I told you not to come, but you insisted on coming. Do you think you can do whatever you want with that little bit of martial arts of yours? They're not ordinary people. That old man can fly in the sky and burrow into the ground. He can even spit out flames from his hand and melt a hole in a 10-centimeter thick steel plate. When they surround you, do you think you can survive?" Hearing Bai Qinxue's words, Li Changsheng only smiled and sipped his tea leisurely. A minute later, there was the sound of hurried footsteps, and then the ironed gate of the farmhouse was kicked open. Wang Shaw and an old man led the way in, followed by a group of men and women dressed in red. At the same time, Li Changsheng saw densely packed figures on the walls of the farmhouse. They were all dressed in red Taoist robes. Seeing these people, Bai Qinxue seemed to have lost all her energy. She fell onto the stone bench with a thud. "Qinxue, come here." Wang Shuo signaled Bai Qinxue with his eyes. However, Bai Qinxue acted as if she did not see it. At that moment, the old man in the lead stepped forward and looked at Li Changsheng coldly. "Mr. Li, I've heard a lot about you. I'm the supreme elder of the Danyang sect, Gu Jiyuan." However, after hearing Gu Jiyuan's introduction, Li Changsheng ignored him. Instead, he looked at Wang Shuo, who was standing beside Gu Jiyuan with a sneer on his face. "Wang, I spared you the last time, but you colluded with others to deal with me. Looks like I have no choice but to kill you." Hearing Li Changsheng's words, Wang Shuo instinctively shrunk his neck. However, when he recalled the Danyang sect's supreme elder's methods, he immediately straightened his back. "Li, my Wang family is one of the 4 great aristocratic families in Capital City. Because of you, we're going to be chased out of Capital City. Do you know how much mockery and disdain I've suffered these days? Don't scare me. Do you think you can still walk out of this farmhouse alive today? Ha! Li Changsheng smiled and shook his head. You'll find out soon enough if I can walk out of here alive. As he spoke, he suddenly stood up and raised his hand to punch Gu Jiyuan. The Danyang sect is a bunch of reckless people. What kind of supreme elder is this? Gu Jiyuan's expression did not change at all when he punched. Instead, he shouted, "Set up the formation. Concentrate your power on me." As soon as he finished speaking, the Danyang sect disciples on the wall and behind him stood in a certain pattern very skillfully. Then, all the invisible power gathered on Gu Jiyuan's body. Gu Jiyuan's aura rose steadily. Then, he took a step forward and faced Li Changsheng. "Li, do you think you can defeat me just because you defeated the Dragon Temple Master? The Dragon Temple Master is too stupid. If he had gathered all the power of the Dragon Temple, the one who would have died on St. Martial Mountain would not have been Mufeng, but you." Gu Jiyuan struck out with his palm. Endless flames gathered and finally enveloped Li Changsheng like a raging dragon. This is the Danyang sect's cornerstone treasure, the Earth Flame. Other sects' cornerstone treasures are all artifacts, but our Danyang sect's cornerstone treasure is a fire seed. It has been 1,000 years since the Danyang sect was founded. Generation after generation, the Danyang sect master nurtured it with his true qi. One day, our Danyang sect will become the #1 sect in the world. Gu Jiyuan looked smug. This was the Danyang sect's greatest trump card. He knew that the Dragon Temple Master had died at the hands of Li Changsheng, but he still dared to encircle Li Changsheng. This was his confidence. This time, Li Changsheng will definitely die. Wang Shua's body was trembling with excitement. Once Li Changsheng died, the Wang family would be able to return to the capital. Moreover, according to his previous agreement with Gu Jiyuan, the Danyang sect would help him become a #1 family in the capital. One who survives a great disaster is bound to have good fortune in the future. Sure enough, my karma is here, Wang Shua muttered to himself. On the other side, Bai Qinshue's face was pale. She bit her lips and tears flowed uncontrollably. After all, Li Changsheng was someone she loved. No matter how heartless she was, she still had feelings for him. "I told you not to come, but you didn't listen. Now that you've lost your life, who can you blame?" Bai Qinshu turned her head to the side. She couldn't bear to see Li Changsheng being burned to ashes by the fire. Li Changsheng, who is known as the #1 person in the world of cultivation and defeated the Dragon Temple Master, isn't much. In the end, he's still going to die at the hands of the Danyang sect. Gu Jiyuan laughed out loud. The surrounding disciples of the Danyang sect also looked smug. However, as soon as he finished speaking, he saw the blazing fire take the initiative to open up a path, and a figure slowly walked out from within. In an instant, the smug expressions on the faces of the Danyang sect disciples froze. Wang Shua was so frightened that his body trembled. Bai Qinshue's eyes were filled with surprise. Li Changsheng is not dead. Chapter 469. Li Changsheng walked out of the sea of fire step by step. The raging flames seemed to have ignored him. Every time they were about to touch his body, they would automatically avoid him. How is this possible? Everyone in the field widened their eyes in shock. The earth flame was the Danyang sect's most powerful attack. It was said to be able to burn everything. However, it did not cause any harm to Li Changsheng at all. "I don't believe that you're really impervious to fire and water," Gu Jiyuan roared. "Explode." The flames suddenly shrunk and turned into a red ball. Then it exploded, causing the ground to tremble. It was as if 100 tons of explosives had exploded. A deep pit was formed on the ground, and rolling heat waves spread out. The surrounding walls and houses were flattened. Many disciples of the Danyang sect were sent flying by the heat waves. Wang Shua only managed to survive because of Gu Jiyuan's protection. Meanwhile, Bai Qinshu, who was closest to Li Changsheng, instantly revealed a look of horror. She let out a scream and covered her eyes, waiting for the violent energy to arrive. However, after a few seconds, the surroundings were still peaceful. She opened her eyes and saw that the moment the heat waves touched her body, they seemed to be blocked by an invisible barrier and disappeared. He should be dead this time, right? Gu Jiyuan stared at the center of the explosion. This was the Danyang sect's cornerstone treasure. Countless seniors of the Danyang sect had used their blood and sweat to refine it. Gu Jiyuan's heart ached when he saw it explode. However, Gu Jiyuan was also a tough person. He knew that an enemy like Li Changsheng had to be killed in one blow. Otherwise, it would be a disaster for the Danyang sect. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds. Gu Jiyuan counted silently in his heart. The heat waves were still raging, but the flames in the center were gradually receding. 10 seconds, 11 seconds. When the flames finally dissipated, there was only a huge pit in the center. Li Changsheng was nowhere to be seen. Could he have been blown to pieces? Just as Gu Jiyuan was puzzled, he heard a faint voice. The earth flame is indeed very powerful, but it's still too weak to deal with me. Raising his head, he saw a figure standing in the air. His clothes fluttered in the wind, and there was not a single wound on his body. Who else could it be but Li Changsheng? When Gu Jiyuan saw Li Changsheng's half-smile, he almost choked and spat out a mouthful of blood. That was the most precious treasure of the Danyang sect. It was already a great loss for the Danyang sect to blow it up. However, Li Changsheng didn't get hurt at all. What could be more humiliating than this? Our sect's most precious treasure. Behind him, the disciples of the Danyang sect were also pounding their chests and stamping their feet. If the power of the explosion wasn't enough, everyone would have accepted their fate. However, they didn't even get close to Li Changsheng, which was too sullen. I want to see exactly how powerful you are. Gu Jiyuan shouted. Ignite the secret technique. Transmit your greatest power to me and kill my enemy with me. As soon as he finished speaking, the disciples of the Danyang sect formed a formation according to a certain pattern. Everyone's aura surged. In the end, countless qi and blood gathered in the air, forming the shadow of a huge divine beast. The divine beast roared into the sky. The blazing fire on its body turned into a red light and merged into Gu Jiyuan's body. At this moment, many disciples of the Danyang sect spat out blood. The secret technique of Ignite destroyed the future of these disciples of the Danyang sect. They were all true disciples of the Danyang sect. All the energy gathered on Gu Jiyuan's body. Gu Jiyuan's skin turned blood red, and the blood in his body circulated, producing a rumbling sound. When he raised his head, there was a raging fire burning in his eyes. Li Changsheng, take this. Gu Jiyuan's body was like a dragon. His body was surrounded by raging fire. When he struck out his palm, the raging fire turned into 9 fire chains and whizzed toward Li Changsheng from all directions. Good timing. In the face of Gu Jiyuan's desperate attack, Li Changsheng spread his arms. When the 9 raging fire chains came into contact with his body, they were all pulled into his embrace by an invisible force. How is this possible? When Gu Jiyuan saw this, his face turned pale with fright. In the next moment, Li Changsheng waved his hand and struck forward. The raging fire in his embrace turned into a fireball and charged toward Gu Jiyuan. Bang! Gu Jiyuan dodged the attack with a sidestep. The fireball smashed into the courtyard, stirring up a large amount of soil and creating a deep pit. A large tree that was as thick as 3 people was instantly blasted into a pile of sawdust that fluttered in the air. Gu Jiyuan, it's time for you to take this attack of mine. Li Changsheng chuckled and used his heart's wishful sword. It turned into a 300-meter long sword gleam that slashed through the sky and whizzed down. Block for me. Dozens of sabers, swords, shields, and other Dharma treasures appeared in front of Gu Jiyuan, forming dozens of layers of defensive walls to block Li Changsheng's sword gleam. Gu Jiyuan was the Grand Supreme Elder of the Danyang sect and had lived for more than 300 years. Some of these Dharma treasures were his personal Dharma treasures that he had personally refined. Some were treasures that he had obtained from exploring ruins. He had been nurturing them with his true energy and had poured a lot of effort into them. If not for the fact that Li Changxing's attack was too terrifying, he would not have taken them out so easily. Dozens of Dharma treasures should be enough to block the sword gleam, Gu Jiyuan thought to himself. However, just as this thought surfaced in his mind, the sword gleam had already landed. The ancient sword at the front cracked under the sword gleam and broke into two. Next, the sabers, shields, golden bells, ancient cauldrons, and dozens of other Dharma treasures were like pieces of white paper under the sword gleam. They were all cut in half in a breath's time. By the time Gu Jiyuan reacted, the sword gleam was already above his head. Block for me. Gu Jiyuan turned pale with fright. As he moved his finger, red lights were extracted from every Danyang sect disciple behind him and transformed into a huge net in front of him. After the red lights were extracted, the Danyang sect disciples fell to the ground one after another. Their faces were pale as if they had aged dozens of years in an instant. Before these disciples came, Gu Jiyuan had inserted a special talisman into their bodies. During crucial moments, the talisman could extract their cultivation base. This was a secret technique unique to the Danyang sect, and it would not be used unless it was absolutely necessary. This was because once it was used, the disciples' decades of hard work would go up in smoke. Moreover, their bodies would be severely damaged, and it would mean that they would never be able to embark on the path of cultivation again. As the blood net formed, the sword gleam was immediately neutralized when it slashed on it. Gu Jiyuan finally sighed in relief. However, the moment the sword gleam disappeared, Li Changxing waved his hands and gathered endless power into the heart sword. He shouted, "Slash again!" Another sword gleam condensed and whizzed through the sky. Chapter 470. Crack. The protective net formed by the Danyang sect's disciples' cultivation bases was torn open by the sword light. Gu Jin, the Danyang sect's grand elder, had a trickle of blood at the corner of his mouth. He was forced to retreat more than 10 meters before he managed to block the sword light. Continue. As soon as the first sword light disappeared, the third sword light was formed and slashed down from the sky. I'd like to see how many of my sword light can you block. Li Changxing's loud laughter could be heard from the sky. Gu Jiyuan's face was extremely pale. Indeed, the second sword light had already torn a hole in the protective net. He would not be able to block 8 or 10 more sword light. Oomph. The amount of true origin consumed by each of your sword light is extremely terrifying. I don't believe that you can do that many times. Gu Jiyuan regained some composure as he spoke to this point. Is that so? Then I'll tell you how many sword light I can do. Before the first sword glow had even landed, Li Changxing had already begun swinging his sword. The fourth sword strike, the fifth sword strike, the sixth sword strike. He swung his sword 6 times in a row, one after the other in the sky, bringing with it a rumbling sound. Gu Jiyuan's eyes were filled with despair when the 6th sword light landed. How's that possible? Under the sword light, the protective net was cut into pieces in the blink of an eye. The 7th sword light landed and slashed toward Gu Jiyuan's body without any obstruction. Do you really want to fight to the death with the Danyang sect? At that moment, a dignified voice was heard. A figure soared from the sky and approached them in the blink of an eye. The Danyang sect disciples were delighted when they saw the figure. Sect leader. The sect leader is here. The sect leader is out of closed-door cultivation. We're saved now. Even Gu Jiyuan looked hopeful. However, before the Danyang sect leader could get close, the 7th sword light landed. Gu Jiyuan was sent flying by the sword light while he kept coughing up blood. How dare you? The Danyang sect leader shouted furiously. However, the 8th sword light landed. Gu Jiyuan's arm that he raised to block was cut into 2. When the Danyang sect leader got close, the 9th sword light landed. The dignified grand elder of the Danyang sect, Gu Jin, was cut in half from head to toe by the sword light. Li Changxing, you dared to kill the great elder of my Danyang sect. Today, I will grind your bones to dust. This was a middle-aged man with a dignified face. He wore a white robe and held a crimson sword in his hand. The sword seemed to have flames circulating around it, emitting a scorching aura. "Sectmaster, you're finally here?" Many disciples of the Danyang sect cried out with tears in their eyes. The Supreme Elder is too dead. A true disciple struggled to stand up from the ground. There were over 40 disciples who came with Guji Yuan this time. All of them were the Danyang sect's true disciples. But now, all of them had withered complexions and looked like decaying old men. Even the Pilyang schoolmaster had a sad expression after seeing this. These were the future of the Danyang sect, and they were all destroyed here today. Rumble! A rumbling sound came from the sky as more than 10 figures approached rapidly. They were the elders of the Danyang sect. They came with the sectmaster of the Danyang sect. As the sectmaster of the Danyang sect was faster, they were slightly slower. Sectmaster. Seeing the scene in front of him, the elder who approached first trembled. Half of the Danyang sect's 1,000 years of foundation has been destroyed today. Your Danyang sect ambushed me and has long been at odds with me. What's the use of saying this now? Li Changsheng looked at the middle-aged man in front of him quietly. It was obvious that he was stronger than Guji Yuan. Among the elders who came later, a few of them were only slightly weaker than Guji Yuan. Such strength was the true trump card of the sect. The Danyang sect said that they wanted to gather the strength of the entire sect to deal with Li Changsheng. But in fact, they had underestimated Li Changsheng and only used half of their strength. People don't know pain until they are beaten. Li Changsheng shook his head and said, "The Danyang sect set a trap for me. Today, I announce that the Danyang sect will be removed from this world." As soon as Li Changsheng finished speaking, the Danyang sect's people were furious. What an arrogant kid. Does he think that the Danyang sect is a pushover? Let's attack together. I don't believe that we can't kill him. The elders of the Danyang sect shouted. The sectmaster of the Danyang sect frowned. Li Changsheng, if I met you alone, I wouldn't dare to attack you. However, the entire Danyang sect is gathered here. Do you think you can still be so arrogant? As soon as the sectmaster of the Danyang sect finished speaking, he waved his hands, and a ball of flame burned fiercely in his hands. Elders, let's kill our enemy together. As soon as the sectmaster of the Danyang sect finished speaking, the elders waved their hands at the same time and gathered their energy on the sectmaster of the Danyang sect. Fire God, please show yourself. The sectmaster of the Danyang sect roared. The flame in his hands suddenly increased by dozens of times and soared into the sky. It then turned into a huge shadow of a demon god. The demon god had a ferocious face and was covered in flames. It was Fire God Zhurong, one of the legendary 12 ancestors of the sorcerer tribe. The Danyang sect inherited the lineage of the ancient Fire God Zhurong. Today, I will summon the Fire God to destroy all evil and restore the Danyang sect to its former glory. As soon as the Fire God Zhurong appeared, the disciples of the Danyang sect were filled with fanaticism. The Fire God was their religion. The appearance of the Fire God Zhurong was no different from a mortal seeing a real Buddha. Fire God Zhurong? I didn't expect him to have a more powerful lineage than the Dragon Temple. Li Changsheng's eyes showed some interest. The Dragon Temple inherited the lineage of the ancient dragon god and eventually turned into the ancient True Dragon clan. However, other than the ancestor dragon, the ancient True Dragon could not be compared with the Fire God Zhurong, one of the 12 ancestors of sorcerer. The Danyang sect condenses the earth flame and has the lineage of the ancient Fire God Zhurong. However, it ranks last among the 6 great holy lands of the Miaojiang. It seems that you have been hiding your strength, hoping to soar into the sky one day. You are more ambitious than the Dragon Temple. Unfortunately, you should not have met me. Li Changsheng shook his head. I don't care how many years you have been dormant. Since I said that the Danyang sect will be removed from the world, after today, the Danyang sect will no longer exist in the world. Li Changsheng, at this time, you still don't accept your fate and try to resist. You really don't know what death is. The sectmaster of the Danyang sect shouted coldly. The Fire God Zhurong's momentum rose steadily. The terrifying heat made people feel like they were in a furnace. Next to him, Wang Shua's eyes were full of pride. He was completely relieved. There was a light at the end of the tunnel. Li Changsheng killed the supreme elder of the Danyang sect, Guji Yuan. He did not expect that the Danyang sect would have a more powerful trump card. As long as you are dead, the peak of the Wang family will come. Wang Shual muttered to himself. On the other side, Bai Qianque's eyes were full of worry. When the fire god Zhurong appeared, his body contained a great power. She only took a glance at him and felt a roar in her head. Fear filled her heart. Li Changsheng did not respond to the sect master of the Danyang sect. Instead, he took a step forward. The sword light in his hand soared into the sky and slashed at the fire god Zhurong across the sky. He actually took the initiative to attack. Chapter 471. The sword radiance was as dazzling as the sun. It pierced through the sky and even scattered the clouds. It was like the mythical Mount Bujo that connected the sky and the earth. It brought with it an endless gust of wind and radiance as it slashed down with a deafening roar. Li Changsheng rose into the sky. The gust of wind blew at his clothes. He looked like a peerless god of war as he shouted, "Break!" Everyone looked at the figure in the sky as if they had seen a god. Wang Shual was so scared that his legs were shaking. What kind of terrifying existence did I provoke? Bai Qianque was even more dazzled. She had always thought that Li Changsheng's trump card was the sick tiger Qi Yu and the heavenly king Su Xiaolin. Only now did she realize that Li Changsheng's strength came from his supernatural power. With such power, if it wasn't for the Danyang sect, those secular families were just ants in his eyes. Even the disciples of the Danyang sect felt suffocated. Li Changsheng's sword was like the might of the heavens. It made them feel helpless. They were afraid that it could split a mountain in half. It was not something that could be stopped by human strength. Li Changsheng, I have indeed underestimated you. But do you think that the 1,000-year foundation of the Danyang sect is so easy to deal with? The power of the fire god Zhurong is not something you can imagine. Even if the energy I gathered is less than 1/10,000th of his original body. The Danyang sect leader's eyes were filled with killing intent. An enemy like Li Changsheng was too terrifying. If he couldn't kill such a person, it would be a disaster for the Danyang sect. Whoosh! The fire god Zhurong suddenly took a step forward. The flames behind him turned into a sea of fire and rushed toward Li Changsheng's sword radiance. Wherever it passed, even the void was distorted. When it came into contact with Li Changsheng's sword radiance, it instantly burned a hole in the void and swallowed the sword radiance. In the next moment, the raging fire rushed to Li Changsheng and surrounded Li Changsheng. Is it over? When Bai Qianque saw Li Changsheng surrounded by flames, she could not help but lower her head. Even with her mortal eyes, she could tell that the Danyang sect leader's flame was more than 100 times more powerful than Gu Jiyuan's earth flame. Wang Shual was so excited that he clenched his fists tightly. His face was flushed red. Today's ups and downs made him feel like he was being roasted over a fire. The disciples of the Danyang clan were overjoyed. Such a terrifying flame could even melt the void. It was not something that could be stopped by humans. Ha! Li Changsheng, the power of your sword is indeed very strong. Even from 100 meters away, it made my heart palpitate. Unfortunately, you didn't think that I would use this move to break your attack. Banished into the boundless void, no matter how strong the attack is, it won't be able to hurt me in the slightest. You will certainly be burned to ashes by the fire god. The sect master of the Danyang sect laughed. But before he could finish speaking, a roar came from the fire. A sword light rushed out of the fire, opening a sword path. From 100 meters away, the sword light pierced toward the sect master of the Danyang sect. Then, a figure walked out of the fire and looked at the sect master of the Danyang sect indifferently. He said word by word, "Since you can banish my sword into the void, then try to take my sword." Li Changsheng's voice resounded through the sky like thunder. The sword light broke through the air and came down with a crazy sword essence. The huge shadow of the fire god was directly penetrated by the sword light. Then it was stirred into the most primitive fire elemental Yuan Qi. It was like a meteor crashing into the atmosphere, bringing along a long trail of fire. It was a frightening sight. Hiss! When the crowd saw this scene, they were completely stunned. Everyone had seen how terrifying the shadow of the fire god was. But now, it was easily torn apart. It was unbelievable. The sect master of the Danyang sect was pale. He had summoned the shadow of the fire god and gathered all the strength of more than a dozen elders of the Danyang sect. However, such an attack did not cause any harm to Li Changsheng. Especially at this moment, the sword light that was descending from the sky had already locked onto him. He wanted to dodge, but he found that his entire body seemed to be imprisoned by an invisible force. There was no way to dodge at all. He could only watch as the sword light kept getting bigger and closer to him. Accept your fate. The sect master of the Danyang sect spat out these two words with difficulty. Now he was really scared. There was a great fear between life and death. Even a person like him, who was usually high and mighty, was no exception. It's time to end this. Li Changsheng sighed softly. Originally, after killing Tao Qian and Tao Jin, as long as the Danyang sect didn't come after him, he didn't plan to find trouble with the Danyang sect. Unfortunately, the man didn't want to hurt the tiger, but the tiger wanted to hurt the man. In this world, if you choose to take a step back, the other party would think that you were afraid of them and take 3 steps forward. Don't. It was too late to say, but in the blink of an eye, the sword light came down with a roar. Accompanied by the scream of the sect master of the Danyang sect, his body was directly penetrated. He flew back dozens of feet and suddenly burst into a mist of blood under the sword light. The rest of the disciples and elders of the Danyang sect were so angry that their eyes almost popped out. Sect master, however, they did not have too much time to grieve. They saw Li Changsheng raise his hand. The flames that were scattered by the sword light began to gather in his hand, as if they were summoned. Finally, they turned into a 3-meter-wide round fireball. Then, Li Changsheng slapped on the fireball. Suddenly, like fireworks, countless palm-sized flames fell from the sky. Meteor fire shower. Even the palm-sized flames were extremely hot. They covered all the disciples and elders of the Danyang sect. Run! The people of the Danyang sect were terrified. They wanted to escape, but it was too late. The flames had all fallen. In the next moment, the ground was set ablaze. Every person of the Danyang sect was hit by the flames. With screams, they were quickly burned to ashes. The ruins of the entire farmhouse turned into a purgatory on earth. Bai Qinxue was so scared that she fainted. A few minutes later, the screams disappeared. As Li Changsheng waved his hand, the endless flames gathered in his palm again. Finally, they turned into a fire-shaped character that jumped between his palms. Is this the wizard fire great way of fire god Zhurong? Li Changsheng muttered to himself. As he clenched his hand, the character completely disappeared. However, there seemed to be an indescribable aura on him. In the next moment, he landed from the sky and checked the surroundings. When he saw Wang Shuo lying there motionless, he could not help but sneer. Lying here pretending to be dead, I'll send you to your death. As he said that, he raised his hand. Wang Shuo's body suddenly trembled. He got up from the ground and then hugged Li Changsheng's thigh. Mr. Li, please spare me. Mr. Li, I won't dare to do it again. Mr. Li, in the next moment, the palm fell mercilessly. Wang Shuo's voice stopped abruptly. Blood flowed out of his 7 orifices. When Li Changsheng raised his hand, Wang Shuo's body collapsed on the ground. Then, his body burst into flames. A few seconds later, he was completely burned to ashes. A breeze blew, and Wang Shuo was no longer in the world. The people of the Wang clan were reckless. They were driven out of the capital. On the surface, they surrendered, but secretly wanted revenge. I can't let them live. However, I'm too lazy to deal with them. I'll leave the matter of dealing with the Wang clan to the major families in the capital. It'll be a chance for them to show their loyalty. Li Changsheng muttered to himself. He turned around and looked at Bai Qinxue, who had fainted on the ground. Li Changsheng carried her and flew to a mountain in the distance. That was the mountain that the major families in the capital bought for him. Chapter 472. The villa at the top of the mountain had been completed, and workers were still working on some of the details. Li Changsheng landed halfway up the mountain with Bai Qianxue in his arms. Then he walked up step by step. If he flew up directly, it would be too shocking. Today, the Liu family's head was in charge of supervising the construction. In order to prevent any mistakes in the villa's construction, the heads of the various aristocratic families took turns to supervise the construction. As soon as Li Changsheng arrived at the top of the mountain, he was stopped by a steward. However, when the Liu family's head was alarmed and addressed him as Mr. Li, the steward was so scared that he hurriedly apologized to Li Changsheng. Li Changsheng didn't pursue the offense. Instead, he praised him for his diligence. The Liu family's head immediately promised to give him a promotion when the villa was completed. The steward was overjoyed. Because he saw Li Changsheng carrying Bai Qianxue, the Liu family's head didn't dare to disturb him. After Li Changsheng entered the villa, he hurriedly left. The interior of the villa had been completely decorated. It could be said to be extremely luxurious. In order to please Li Changsheng, the heads of the aristocratic families in the capital naturally used the most expensive materials and designed the villa in a way that showed off its quality. After putting Bai Qianxue on the sofa, Li Changsheng stood in front of the floor-to-ceiling window and overlooked the entire mountain. Buying a mountain in the capital where every inch of land was worth an inch of gold was definitely something unimaginable for ordinary people. Even the aristocratic families in the capital didn't have such extravagance. If it weren't for the joint efforts of the aristocratic families, it would be impossible to do this. Now, the rumor of this mountain being bought to build a villa was the biggest news in the capital. However, Li Changsheng wasn't looking at the scenery outside. In his eyes, he could see wisps of dragon aura floating around. The capital had been the imperial city for generations, and it had formed a general trend. The dragon aura spread to every corner of the surroundings. What Li Changsheng had to do was to collect the dragon aura. He asked the Liu family's head. The villa would be completed in 3 days. 3 days later, Li Changsheng decided to go into seclusion. When the great array is completed, the dragon aura will nourish the Yin aura. It should be enough for me to break through to the Vajra realm. Li Changsheng muttered to himself. At this moment, light footsteps came from behind him. Someone hugged him from behind. He didn't need to guess to know that it was Bai Qianxue. Changsheng, let's make up. Bai Qianxue wrapped her arms around Li Changsheng's waist and rested her head on his back. Li Changsheng's body stiffened, and then he smiled bitterly. The word love was more complicated than the most complicated problem in the world. He thought that he had let go of this feeling long ago, but at this moment, his heart still fluctuated greatly. However, from the moment Bai Qianxue and Wang Shuo walked out of the airport, it was impossible for them to be together again. We're done. Li Changsheng shook his head and gently pried Bai Qianxue's hand apart. When she turned around, Bai Qianxue's eyes were filled with tears. She looked desperate and pitiful. She looked just like the first time the two of them had met. When they had left the bar, Bai Qianxue had stood by the roadside, looking helpless and lonely. It was a pity that that was the starting point, and now it was the end. Can't you give me another chance? Bai Qianxue looked straight at Li Changsheng with tears in her eyes. However, Li Changsheng only shook his head gently. He didn't say anything, but he had already expressed his attitude. Okay. Bai Qianxue wiped the tears from her eyes, then stretched out her arms and hugged Li Changsheng. She then turned around and left in a daze. Li Changsheng didn't say anything until Bai Qianxue walked out of the villa and disappeared on the mountain path. Outside, the head of the Liu family was confused when he saw Bai Qianxue walk out. He looked inside the villa and didn't dare to ask anything in the end. After returning to the capital from the villa, Li Changsheng brought Lu Chong and his disciple to the villa at the top of the mountain. When they saw the wide stairs on the mountain, they felt very majestic. Even though Lu Chong had seen a lot of the world, he still couldn't help but sigh. Walking up the villa, other than the largest one in the center, there were two smaller villas on both sides, one on the left and one on the right. From now on, Lu Chong and his disciple would live in these two villas. At this moment, the villa at the top of the mountain had been completely built and all the construction equipment had been removed. That night, the sky was full of stars. Li Changsheng stood on the roof of the villa and pushed with his hand, throwing spirit stones into the surrounding ground. As he threw the last spirit stone, there was a sudden roar between heaven and earth. Endless fog could be seen gathering at the top of the mountain, shrouding the entire villa. A super-large spirit gathering array was completed. At this moment, Lu Chong and his disciples' eyes were filled with joy. This white fog is actually formed when the spirit chi has reached a certain level. Cultivating here for a day is equivalent to cultivating for 100 days outside, Lu Chong said with emotion. Next to him, Aju only looked at Li Changsheng at the top of the mountain with a complicated expression. If it weren't for the fact that her father and sister had both died at Li Changsheng's hands, Li Changsheng would probably have become her idol. After the spirit gathering array was successfully set up, Li Changsheng didn't stop. Instead, he continued to wave his hand and inserted flags around the villa. What he had just set up was a spirit gathering town, and now he was going to set up a fiend gathering array. The array to gather the true dragon fiend was more complicated than the spirit gathering array. Even Li Changsheng took a few hours to set it up. The moment the formation was completed, a majestic golden dragon slowly appeared above the villa, letting out a roar. In the next moment, the largest villa disappeared in front of Lu Chong and his disciple. All they saw was a golden brilliance flowing, and Li Changsheng's voice came from the brilliance. From now on, I'm going to go into seclusion. Don't let anyone disturb me. As soon as his voice fell, there was no sound from inside. They could only see a huge body floating in the golden light. It was the python that Li Changsheng had subdued this time. This python had the bloodline of the true dragon. When Li Changsheng was in seclusion, he used the true dragon chi to refine it, making the bloodline in its body purer. Ordinary spirit beasts couldn't withstand the refinement of the true dragon chi, even if they awakened the power of their bloodline. Not only would it not make them stronger, but it would also kill them. Only those with the true dragon bloodline could withstand this opportunity. This time, Li Changsheng wanted to see what kind of changes would happen to it in the end by using the true dragon fiend to refine its physique. This python already possessed a very high level of intelligence. What Li Changsheng wanted was an absolutely loyal subordinate. He could use this baleful yang qi to wipe out its divine sense. At that time, it would become a puppet that Li Changsheng could use as he wished. Chapter 473. Li Changsheng used dragon qi to nourish yin qi. When the spirit gathering formation and the evil gathering formation were completed, he officially entered secluded cultivation. Time did not exist in the mountains, but cultivation was long. As Li Changsheng entered secluded cultivation, a few months passed in the blink of an eye. At this moment, in a private hospital in the capital, an old man in his 60s was standing in a ward with a gloomy expression. Behind him was a group of fearful subordinates. Fangda was my personal disciple. His spiritual power was extraordinary, and he could pass on my legacy. I didn't expect him to be crippled. As the old man stood there, the temperature in the ward dropped to freezing point. Man and I, who was taking care of Fangda, was trembling all over. Ever since the old man entered the ward, she felt a fear that came from the depths of her heart. "Teacher, you have to avenge me." On the bed, Fangda's eyes were bloodshot and his entire face was twisted. For half a year, he felt the pain of being in a vegetative state, which made his hatred for Li Changsheng even more intense. "Don't worry," the old man comforted Fangda. "You rest here first. I'll avenge you. In the past half a year, I just happened to explore an ancient ruin and obtained a divine artifact. I'll show the chi refiners of the East how powerful we Western cultivators are." With that, the old man turned and walked out of the ward. At the same time, he ordered his subordinates, "Go investigate that Li Changsheng. How can I let him off so easily for daring to act so ruthlessly against my student?" "Yes." The subordinate hurriedly nodded. What about young Master Fongda's condition? The subordinate asked cautiously. The old man waved his hand. Since his body is already damaged and can't be cured, find some time to get rid of him. A useless person living in this world is a waste of food. The subordinate next to him was stunned and hurriedly nodded. Yes. In the room, Man and I looked at her boyfriend lying on the bed with a haggard expression. She already knew that the reason Fongda became like this was all because of Li Changsheng. She suggested calling the police several times, but Fongda shook his head and stopped her. Fongda himself was a psychic. How could he not know that Li Changsheng, who could make him like this, was not someone the secular world could do anything to? My teacher is here. He will definitely avenge me and heal my body. Fongda looked at Manny beside him, his expression filled with excitement. The past half a year had been like hell to him, and now he was finally free. Really? Manny's eyes were filled with doubt. In the past 6 months, they had also invited many well-known domestic and foreign experts to treat Fongda. But in the end, without exception, all of them shook their heads and said that Fongda would probably be bedridden for the rest of his life. Of course, my teacher is omnipotent and possesses all sorts of inconceivable abilities. He will definitely be able to cure me. As soon as Fongda's voice fell, he heard a kacha sound. The door of the ward was pushed open and several men in black rushed in. Who are you? Man and I saw that these people were coming aggressively and hurriedly stood in front of Fongda's bed. We are Mr. Tony's men. We are here to bring young Master Fongda for treatment. The man in the lead said coldly. Man and I couldn't help but look at Fongda, who was lying on the bed. It's okay. Man and I, don't stop them. It won't be long before I appear in front of you in good condition. Hearing Fongda's words, Man and I stepped aside. The men in black immediately stepped forward and carried Fongda out of the ward. When the door was closed, Man and I suddenly had a bad feeling. She hurriedly rushed out, only to see that the corridor of the hospital was empty. More than 10 minutes later, in an unknown pit in the mountain behind the hospital, there was a nameless body. Now the Yi family had gradually become the richest family in the capital. With the rise of Li Changsheng, he stepped on the whole capital. Because of the relationship between Yi Shuang and Li Changsheng, the Yi family now suppressed several families who were originally as famous as the Yi family. Today was the opening day of the Yi family's new company. Firecrackers were fired. The door of the company building was full of flower baskets sent by people. The stewards of the Liu family, the He family, the Song family, and other families all came to congratulate them. Daughter, hasn't Mr. Li come out of seclusion yet? After Yi Haoran welcomed the head of an aristocratic family in, he looked at his daughter, Yi Shuang, who was standing beside him to welcome the guests. No. I just went there the day before yesterday. The whole villa was shrouded in clouds and mist, but I saw Master Lu Chong, who was in charge of guarding the tactical matrix. He said that since Changsheng went into seclusion, there has been no movement in the villa for half a year. Mr. Li is a celestial being. It would be great if he could personally come to our Yi family's opening ceremony today. It would be a great honor for our Yi family. However, how can a small matter like ours be more important than his seclusion? Yi Haoran felt a little regretful. He remembered that when Li Changsheng just came to the capital, he regarded him as a plague and wished that his daughter would be better and better away from him. He didn't expect that today the Yi family would benefit from Li Changsheng. Dad, you were very opposed to me being with Changsheng at that time, Yi Shuang said jokingly. Yi Haoran's face suddenly turned red. In the crowd, in addition to the various families in the capital, there were also some bosses of small companies who had some business with the Yi family. One of them was a middle-aged man in a suit. Behind him were several subordinates carrying a flower basket. Next to him were 3 young men, Jiang Tao, Yang Fan, and Zhang Xiaofeng. This middle-aged man was Jiang Tao's father. Because of the relationship between Jiang Tao and Li Changsheng, Yi Shuang specially let the Yi family cooperate with Jiang Tao's company on several projects. Of course, she didn't say that it was because of Li Changsheng. Jiang Tao's father thought that it was because of his good luck that he was able to get in touch with the Yi family in the capital. Today was the opening of the Yi family's new company, so he naturally wanted to add flowers to the brocade and bring his son to see the world. Who knew that Jiang Tao would insist on bringing Yang Fan and Zhang Xiaofeng? Although Jiang Yue was a little unhappy, he didn't say anything. The Yi family's reputation in the capital was so high that it could be said that no one was an ordinary person. Jiang Tao's company was so small that no one noticed them at such an occasion. Jiang Tao, take your 2 classmates outside first. I'll pay a visit to Boss Yi. Jiang Yue told Jiang Tao. When he was about to go forward, he saw Yi Shuang coming over. Miss Yi. When Jiang Yue saw Yi Shuang, he immediately showed a respectful expression. For a small boss like him, Yi Shuang was already a high and mighty figure. Many people around also looked over curiously. After all, Yi Shuang's identity was not ordinary. Hello, Uncle Jiang. Yi Shuang greeted Jiang Yue with a smile. Jiang Yue was immediately overwhelmed by the favor. Next, Yi Shuang took the initiative to extend her hand to Jiang Tao and the other 2 and said, "Welcome to my company's opening ceremony. Please come in." After that, Yi Shuang waved to a reception staff in the crowd and asked them to take care of Jiang Tao and the others. This made many people around begin to guess Jiang Yue's identity. After all, the treatment that could make the Yi families miss personally come to greet them was not ordinary. Although Jiang Yue was also puzzled, he couldn't help but lift his chest when he saw the envious eyes around him. He felt very proud. Chapter 474. Jiang Yue's heart was full of doubts along the way as he was received by a special receptionist. Logically speaking, with his status, he was not qualified to be greeted by the eldest daughter of the Yi family. But it happened like this. He recalled that half a year ago, a project manager of the Yi family took the initiative to sign a project contract with the Jiang family's company. At that time, it was like a pie fell from the sky and hit him. Although he had investigated many times afterward, he did not know why the Yi family chose the Jiang family among so many competing companies. Whether it was the Jiang family's strength or other aspects, they could not be compared with those companies. Today, the eldest daughter of the Yi family's attitude made his doubts even deeper. In particular, the eldest daughter of the Yi family called him Uncle Jiang instead of Director Jiang. Such a close address was very different. Tao, the eldest daughter of the Yi family, is a little different to you? Don't tell me you have something to do with her? After thinking about it, Jiang Yue set his eyes on his son. It seemed that this was the only way to explain Tong Ye's favor to the Jiang family. Jiang Tao hurriedly shook his head. Dad, don't think too much. The reason why Yi Shuang treats us differently from other companies is all because of Li Changsheng. Last time at the company's Christmas party, Yi Shuang personally went to Qingzhou to support Li Changsheng. Jiang Tao and others were also there and knew that Yi Shuang's identity was not ordinary. But they never thought that Yi Shuang's identity was actually the eldest daughter of the Yi family in the capital, the number 1 family in the capital. Li Changsheng. Jiang Yue could not help but frown. He had seen many of Jiang Tao's friends, but the name Li Changsheng was only vaguely familiar. He could not remember where he had seen it for a while. When he looked at Zhang Xiaofeng and Yang Fan, his eyes suddenly revealed a look of surprise. Could it be the most ordinary boy in your dorm when we went out to eat last time? No wonder Jiang Yue had such an expression. The last time he invited Director Huang to eat outside. In his impression, Li Changsheng was the most inconspicuous one. At that time, he was quite disdainful of Li Changsheng. He felt that such a student was not good at talking, looked ordinary, and had no eyesight. He was destined to be mediocre and not have much success in society. Not to mention him, Director Huang also had the same thought at that time. Yes, Dad, it's Li Changsheng. Yi Shuang and Li Changsheng's relationship isn't ordinary. I think she's Li Changsheng's girlfriend. No wonder. After Jiang Yue heard this, all the doubts in his heart disappeared. You have to thank your roommate. He has brought a lot of benefits to our Jiang family. After saying that, Jiang Yue's eyes revealed a trace of envy. His son was handsome and had temperament, a typical sunshine boy. How come he wasn't as lucky as Li Changsheng to be chosen by Missy? Your roommate has really climbed up the social ladder this time. He has become the boyfriend of the eldest daughter of the Yi family. His future will be bright. I didn't expect him to have such a good life despite being so ordinary. The eldest daughter of the Yi family probably likes honest boys like him. Jiang Yue sighed with emotion. Hearing his father's words, Jiang Tao smiled. Dad, you're wrong. Although the eldest daughter of the Yi family has a noble status, Changsheng isn't bad either. You don't know that Li Changsheng is famous in Qingzhou, and he has several big companies under his name. Among all the friends I know, there are only a few who can be compared to him. Really? I really didn't see it. Jiang Yue's mood was very complicated. He had been in business for half of his life and had seen countless people in the business world. He thought that he had a discerning eye, but he didn't expect that he would be wrong this time. Although Zhang Xiaofeng and Yang Fan had known about Li Changsheng's deeds, they also sighed with emotion at this moment. Who would have thought that the most inconspicuous person in the dormitory would be the most glorious and dazzling one? However, although Changsheng is capable, he's only powerful in Qingzhou. If he can marry the eldest daughter of the Yi family in the capital, Yi Shuang, it will be of great help to him. Jiang Tao also sighed with emotion. The Yi family in the capital. After all, Qingzhou was only a small place. To put it bluntly, even if the Chu family, which was ranked first in Qingzhou, was at most a medium-sized force in the capital. In the eyes of many people, being able to hug the thighs of the Yi family in the capital could make people struggle less for 20 years. Even Li Changsheng was no exception. Next to them, the receptionist who led them and walked in front and listened to their conversation. As if suddenly thinking of something, his eyes were filled with shock. The Changsheng you're talking about, is it Mr. Li Changsheng? He finally couldn't help but ask. Yes, it's Li Changsheng. He's in Qingzhou, and people call him Mr. Li. So it's Mr. Li's friend. The receptionist smiled. Just now, he had some doubts in his heart. This Jiang Yue was obviously just the boss of an ordinary company. How could he make the eldest daughter of the Yi family personally welcome him? Now he understood. Li Changsheng's friend was the most distinguished guest. What? You also know about Li Changsheng? It seems that Li Changsheng will definitely be the son-in-law of the Yi family. Even an ordinary employee of the Yi family knows about him. Yang Fan joked from the side. There was no lack of pride on his face. Originally, such a banquet was not for a poor student like him to speak. Now that he was basking in Li Changsheng's glory, he felt that he was instantly covered in a halo and became extremely confident. I know about Mr. Li not only because of his relationship with the eldest daughter of the Yi family. Let's put it this way. Now in the upper circle of the capital, who doesn't know about Mr. Li's name? Hearing the receptionist's words, Jiang Tao and the others revealed a puzzled expression. Is Changsheng so famous in the capital? The receptionist saw Jiang Tao and the others' puzzled expressions and couldn't help but laugh. So you guys actually don't know about Mr. Li's deeds. This Mr. Li is really low-key. Although my Yi family used to be one of the top wealthy families in the capital, it was only one of them. It was definitely not the only one. There were several wealthy families that could be on par with the Yi family. But because of Mr. Li's relationship with the eldest daughter of the Yi family, my Yi family is now the #1 family in the capital. So it's not that Mr. Li is basking in my Yi family's glory, but that my Yi family is basking in Mr. Li's glory. Hearing the other party's words, Jiang Tao and the others were completely dumbfounded. At this moment, Jiang Yue abruptly slapped his forehead and exclaimed, could it be that Li Changsheng is the one who has been spreading like wildfire during this period of time? The one who forced the Wang clan out of the capital and made the other clans bow their heads. The one who trampled all over the capital. Chapter 475. Jiang Tao and the others were led into the hall and sat down. Around them were the heads of the top families in the capital. Seeing a few unfamiliar faces, especially 3 young people, several people in the hall couldn't help but frown. Seeing so many big shots, Jiang Yue was instantly overwhelmed, and his voice became softer. Jiang Tao, Zhang Xiaofeng, and the others didn't even dare to breathe. Momentum was invisible and intangible, but it really existed. These big shots were all people standing at the top of the pyramid. They held great power and could shake the entire north with a stomp of their feet. In front of such big shots, Jiang Tao and the others were like ants in front of an elephant. After the reception staff led Jiang Tao and the others to their seats, they left. At this time, a slightly surprised voice sounded. "Jiang Tao, why are you here?" Turning his head, he saw Tang Bo and his girlfriend, Zhong Xin, coming over. Now the Yi family's business was all over the north. Tang Bo's company also had some cooperation with the Yi family, so he was qualified to attend today's opening ceremony. "So it's Tang Bo. You're here too." It was undoubtedly a very happy thing to be able to meet someone he knew in such a place. Jiang Tao, Zhang Xiaofeng, and the others also smiled. Sitting here were all big shots, and they were a little suffocated by the pressure. "I came with my dad." With that, Tang Bo couldn't help but lower his voice and said, "Jiang Tao, you really don't know the rules. Why are you sitting at this table? This table is full of the top big shots in the capital. Not to mention you, even the top 100 rich people in the country are not qualified to sit here. If the Yi family sees you, they will say that you don't know the rules. Hurry up and sit over there with us." With that, he pointed to a seat near the door. No matter where you were, levels were real. Just like in such a small opening ceremony, although the Yi family didn't explicitly say anything, people would choose a seat suitable for themselves according to their rank. This was the circle, and the closer to the front, the more important the people sitting there were, and the closer to the door, the lower the status. For people like Tang Bo and Jiang Tao's company, it was already very good to be able to sit at the door. "It's okay." Jiang Tao smiled. "The reception staff arranged for us here." "What?" Tang Bo frowned. "How is that possible? Does the Yi family's receptionist not know the rules?" The few big shots present all looked at Jiang Tao and the others with great interest. Just now, when Jiang Tao and the others sat down, it made the big bosses a little unhappy. Jiang Yue was fine. Although they had never seen him before, he might be the leader of a big company. After all, China was so big, it was impossible for anyone to know everyone. However, Jiang Tao and the others were only of the younger generation. Even the young masters of the wealthy families in the capital did not have the qualifications to sit at this table. "Why don't we sit over there?" Hearing Tang Bo's words, Jiang Tao also felt that he didn't know the importance of sitting at this table. Jiang Yue nodded. When he was about to get up, he saw Yi Haoran, the head of Yi family, and his daughter, Yi Shuang, striding towards the table. It would be too conspicuous to stand up at this time, so Jiang Yue and the others sat down. From her point of view, Yi Haoran, with such a high status, was definitely here to meet the heads of the aristocratic families, who knew that after Yi Haoran walked over, he would be the first to reach out his hand to Jiang Yue. "Director Jiang, this is the first time we've met since you're working with my Yi family's company. I'm usually busy, so please excuse me." Jiang Yue was flattered that the head of the Yi family personally reached out his hand, and the hand that reached out was slightly trembling. "Director Yi, you're too polite." After shaking hands with Jiang Yue, Yi Haoran shook hands with Jiang Tao, Yang Fan, and Zhang Xiaofeng respectively. After a few greetings, he greeted the head of the He family, He Bingxiang, and the other heads of the aristocratic families. He took the initiative to pick up his glass and toasted them before turning to another table. When Yi Haoran walked away, everyone's gazes changed completely. Even Tang Bo was confused. He pulled Jiang Tao's sleeve and whispered, "Brother, are those companies that only I know about in your family, and you didn't hide your identity from me?" That's the head of the Yi family. Jiang Tao and the others didn't need to think to know that it must be because of Li Changsheng. "Jiang Tao, that classmate of yours is really amazing." Jiang Yue sighed again. "Classmate? Which classmate?" Even Zhong Xin, who was next to Tang Bo, looked puzzled and blurted out. The other heads of the aristocratic families at the table also pricked up their ears. They were also very curious about Jiang Tao's identity. "It's Li Changsheng." "Li Changsheng? Is he so capable?" Zhong Xin exclaimed aloud. Tang Bo was also dumbfounded. After the other bosses at the table were shocked, they were instantly relieved. So you're Mr. Li's classmate. Hello, my name is He Bingxiang, the head of the He family. I'm the head of the Liu family. I'm the chairman of China Resources Pharmaceutical. The several bosses present were indifferent just now, but at this moment, they became enthusiastic and reached out their hands to greet Jiang Tao and the others. Tang Bo and Zhong Xian looked at each other and didn't speak, but their hearts were like stormy waves. They thought that their guess of Li Changsheng was high enough, but they didn't expect that it was still too low. As time went by, the empty hall was full of people. Many of the heads of the top aristocratic families who came in later originally wanted to sit at He Bingxiang's table, but when they saw Jiang Tao and the others occupying half of the seats, they had to go to the table next to them. Seeing that Jiang Yue and the others were chatting happily with the masters of the aristocratic families, many people were guessing which super aristocratic family they were from, since they could be treated so warmly by the big shots who usually didn't smile much. In the capital, the number of people who could receive such treatment could be counted with 2 hands. Today is the opening day of my Yi family's new company. Thank you for coming. The head of the Yi family, Yi Haoran, stood on the stage. As soon as he opened his mouth, the hall fell into silence. My Yi family is indebted to all the old and new friends. Just as the head of the Yi family was about to say the lines that he had prepared in advance yesterday, suddenly there was a loud bang, and the door of the hall was violently opened. Then a row of men in black stood neatly at the door. Each of them was more than one, 8 meters tall. There were black and white people, and all of them had foreign faces. After the door opened, a yellow-haired old man wearing a white coat walked in with majestic strides. After a few seconds of silence, the crowd immediately broke out into discussions. The Yi family was now the #1 aristocratic family in the capital. Someone actually broke into the company's opening ceremony. Looking at the aggressive appearance of these people, it was obvious that they came with ill intentions. Who is this? Isn't he too bold? After the door was kicked open, a security guard in uniform immediately rushed in. However, those security guards didn't have time to approach before they were beaten to the ground by the men in black. Especially the Yi family's security captain, who nimbly broke through the encirclement of several men in black and rushed to the front of the old man. Before he could make a move, he saw the old man fiercely glare at him. Then the security captain let out an ear-piercing scream, covered his head, and rolled on the ground. What's going on? When the crowd saw this scene, they suddenly felt a chill in their hearts. They didn't even touch his body, just a glare, and it made a powerful bodyguard become like this. This was too strange. Chapter 476. At this moment, the entire hall was silent. This scene was too strange. Just a glance was enough to make one of them scream in agony, as if he had been struck by lightning. Although the people present were the heads of various aristocratic families and could be considered as people who had seen the world, this kind of godlike ability still made them feel terrified. Who are you? Yi Haoran, the head of the Yi family, was the head of the #1 family in the capital. Although he was frightened, it was not easy for him to remain calm on the surface. Naturally, I'm someone who is here to cause trouble. Can't the head of the Yi family see it? The old man chuckled. He walked up the high platform step by step. There were still many security guards who did not have time to make a move, but no one dared to stop this old man who seemed to have difficulty walking. You dare to cause trouble for the Yi family. So what if you are proficient in magic? Do you know who is backing the Yi family? Yi Haoran said loudly. In fact, this was because he had a guilty conscience. Distant water could not quench a present thirst. Even if the Yi family had Li Changsheng as their backing, he had seen the old man's means just now. Li Changsheng could not save him in time. He had to find a way to suppress the other party. Isn't it the famous Mr. Li? The elder chuckled. I'm here for him. Do you think your small Yi family is worthy of me to deal with? As soon as the other party spoke, Yi Haoran's face suddenly changed. Li Changsheng was his only trump card. The other party clearly knew that Li Changsheng was backing the Yi family, but he still came here to cause trouble. He was not afraid of Li Changsheng at all. This was troublesome. What do you want? This time, even Yi Haoran's voice was a little stuttering. I heard that your daughter has a good relationship with Li Changsheng. That Li Changsheng caused my disciple to become a vegetable, causing me to lose my successor. I have to force him out and then kill him with my own hands. After he finished speaking, Tony gestured at Yi Shuang with his finger. Immediately, Yi Shuang was like a puppet as she walked towards Tony with a dazed look in her eyes. When Yi Haoran saw his daughter's state, he hurriedly reached out to grab Yi Shuang's arm. At this moment, Tony only snorted coldly. Immediately, it was as if a yellow bell had rung in his mind. Yi Haoran's eyes overflowed with blood. He took 3 steps back and fell to the ground with a plop. At this moment, everyone sucked in a cold breath. This Tony was too terrifying. His eyes seemed to have an extraordinary magical power. He didn't even need to make a move, and others would be affected by him. This is simply a devil, a devil. A company CEO finally couldn't bear this strange pressure and screamed. But in the next moment, a black-clothed figure rushed in front of him and grabbed his neck. Crack! His head instantly drooped down and fell limply to the ground. It was unknown whether he was dead or alive. Suddenly, many women were so scared that their faces turned pale, but they didn't dare to make a sound. They covered their mouths tightly, and tears flowed out of their eyes. There were even sounds of teeth chattering in the field. The opening ceremony of the Yi family's company instantly turned into a bloodbath. Everyone was in danger. Meanwhile, Yi Shuang had already walked in front of Tony with a numb body. At this moment, Tony snapped his fingers. Yi Shuang's delicate body suddenly shook, and her eyes regained their clarity. When Yi Shuang saw this demon-like old man right before his eyes, he was so frightened that he let out a shriek. He wanted to escape, but the old man grabbed him by the neck and lifted him up like he was grabbing a little chick before tossing him behind him. Immediately, 2 men in black went forward and tied Yi Shuang up. Yi Haoran got up from the ground and wanted to rush over to save his daughter. However, he heard Tony snort coldly, "If you dare to take a step forward, I'll turn your daughter into an idiot immediately. Do you believe me?" Yi Haoran stopped in his tracks. If Tony had said this when he first came in, he might not have believed it. However, after witnessing Tony's strange means, he had no choice but to believe it. He didn't dare to use his daughter as a bet. Seeing that Yi Haoran had stopped there obediently, Tony smirked a few times. "I heard that your daughter has an unusual relationship with Li Changsheng. Now that your daughter is in my hands, get Li Changsheng to come and get her. I'll give him 7 days. If he doesn't show up, you can collect your daughter's corpse." Hearing what Tony said, Yi Haoran's face turned pale. His voice trembled as he said, "Li Changsheng is in the villa on Lupan Mountain. You can look for him directly. Why do you have to kidnap my daughter?" Tony sneered. "Li Changsheng harmed my disciple, so he hid in the villa on the top of the mountain. The Chinese study the right time, place, and people. The villa on the top of the mountain is his territory. I don't know how many tricks he has set up. Wouldn't it be stupid for me to seek revenge there? I want to lure him down the mountain and turn him into an idiot with my own hands. That's the only way I can get rid of the hatred in me. So that's how it is." Yi Haoran felt bitter in his heart. If what Tony said was true, and Li Changsheng ran to the villa on the top of the mountain to avoid Tony, would Li Changsheng really go down the mountain with his daughter as a bargaining chip? If Li Changsheng hid in the villa on the top of the mountain and did not come out, his daughter would die because of it. Miss Li might not go down the mountain just because Shuang was captured. "What you're doing is too unfair to my daughter," Yi Haoran said loudly. "Fair? Tony sneered. "How can there be fairness in the world? As for whether Li Changsheng will go down a mountain or not, whether your daughter can live or not, it depends on how much weight she has in Li Changsheng's heart. 7 days later, I'll be waiting for Li Changsheng at the Hanbo Villa on the outskirts of Beijing. Think of a way to tell him." After Tony finished speaking, he turned around and walked out. Soon, he and a group of black men disappeared from everyone's sight, and the scene was still silent. Even the heartbeats of the people in the field could be heard clearly. It was not until more than 10 minutes later that the sound of discussion gradually rang out. "This foreigner is simply like a devil. It's too scary. Yeah, Can Li Changsheng really deal with him? If Li Changsheng loses to him, then Yi Xuan is finished. But if Li Changsheng doesn't come out of the villa, it seems that Tony won't dare to kill his way into the villa. If Li Changsheng doesn't come out of the villa, then the eldest daughter of the Yi family will definitely die. Fortune and misfortune depend on each other, and misfortune hides within each other. The ancients are right. How long has the Yi family been proud of themselves? And now they're implicated by Li Changsheng. How pitiful. People can't be too proud. The Yi family thought that it was a great thing to get close to Li Changsheng, but they didn't know that Li Changsheng might bring them a disaster. Some people in the field were gloating, while others shook their heads and sighed. However, most of them were just watching the fun, and few people were really worried about the Yi family. Humans were like this. When you were lucky and proud, people couldn't wait to praise you to the heavens. One by one, they would come over to lick your stinky feet. Even their feces would be fragrant. But when you were down on your luck, they would hit you when you were down. Everyone would step on you and not forget to spit in your face. The deep-rooted bad habits of people have been like this since ancient times. Yi Haoran's head was still buzzing, as if it had been put on a curse, and it was faintly painful. However, these were not important. What was important was that his most beloved daughter had been taken away by the other party. His fingers trembled as he dialed a number. Hello, Xiao Zhao. Quickly drive to pick me up and take me to the villa on the top of Lupan Mountain. I want to see Mr. Li. After that, Yi Haoran sat there with a plop, his face extremely pale. Chapter 477. Sitting in the first row, Jiang Tao and the others were completely dumbfounded. They were just ordinary people and had never seen such a terrifying method. Changsheng actually offended such a powerful enemy. What should we do? Yang Fan's face was pale. Just now, Tony didn't even look at him, but he was already scared out of his wits. In his opinion, such a person was like a devil, not someone Li Changsheng could deal with. It seems that this Li Changsheng is also not an ordinary person, otherwise, he wouldn't have provoked such an enemy. Jiang Yue sighed. If my guess is correct, Li Changsheng should be an ability user. What is an ability user? Jiang Tao and the others were puzzled. An ability user is born with power that surpasses ordinary people. Isn't that something that only exists on TV? Jiang Tao and the others stared with their eyes wide open. I used to think that there was no such person in the world, but when I was young, I saw a person walking on a river and realized that the world is far from as simple as it seems. So, is Changsheng really such a person? No wonder he looks so young, but even the Yi family has to rely on him. But even if Li Changsheng is an ability user, can he deal with that old man? Jiang Tao and the others' hearts were heavy. After witnessing Tony's terror, it was hard for them to imagine that there was someone who could block such a ghostly method. 10 minutes later, Yi Haoran's driver finally arrived. Seeing his boss with bloodstains on his face, the driver was immediately frightened. Mr. Yi, what happened to you? Who dares to hurt you? Do you want me to inform the family guards? Hearing the driver's words, Yi Haoran waved his hand. Every aristocratic family had a private armed force to protect the members of the family. If it was before, whenever Yi Haoran was threatened, the Yi family would mercilessly send out guards to crush the enemy. But now, the Yi family was facing a terrifying character like Tony. The other party didn't even need to touch the body to be able to control people's minds and injure them. How could the Yi family's guards deal with him? Now, his only hope was Li Changsheng. He hoped that Li Changsheng would deal with Tony on account of the relationship between him and Yi Xuan. However, whether or not he could deal with Tony was still unknown. Yi Haoran was also uncertain in his heart. With the help of the bodyguards, they left the hall. There was no need for the opening ceremony to continue. At the mountaintop villa, Lu Chong and his disciple were cultivating. Li Changsheng had set up a spirit-gathering town to gather spirit qi from all directions. In just half a year, Lu Chong felt that his cultivation had improved a lot. The last time she came back from Yaojiang, she was still a beginner who had just stepped onto the threshold of cultivation. But now, she had already reached the 5th layer of qi refining. One had to know that this kind of cultivation speed was already very fast. First, it was because Aju was talented in cultivation. Otherwise, the high priest of the Miao tribe, Liao Mo, would not have followed her and insisted on taking her as a disciple. However, even if she had the talent for cultivation, it was definitely difficult for her to step into the 5th layer of qi refining in half a year. Nowadays, the spirit qi in the world is scarce. Otherwise, the cultivation sex would not have been reduced to such a state. I have to thank Mr. Li, Lu Chong said to Aju. He knew that his disciple had been brooding about her father and sister, so he had been enlightening her these days. If Aju was hostile to Li Changsheng, it would be tantamount to courting death. When he first met Li Changsheng, although Li Changsheng was powerful, he could still see through Li Changsheng's realm. But now, when he faced Li Changsheng, he really felt like a mortal facing a god. It was as unfathomable as an abyss. Master, I understand. Aju lowered her head and said, how could she not understand the truth? It was just that it was not so easy to cross the barrier in her heart. At this moment, there was a sudden surge in the great formation. Lu Chong suddenly stood up from the ground. As soon as he walked out of the formation, he saw Yi Haoran staggering all over. He could not help but look surprised. Lu Chong naturally saw that Yi Haoran was seriously injured. Patriarchy, why are you here? If people from other families came, Lu Chong would directly drive them away, because Li Changsheng said that no one was to disturb him. But Yi Haoran, the patriarch of the Yi family, was different. Because of his relationship with Yi Shuang, Lu Chong also respected Yi Haoran a little more. After seeing Lu Chong, Yi Haoran hurriedly said, Master Lu, please open the formation and let me in. I have something to see Mr. Li. Lu Chong thought about it and shook his head to refuse. Patriarchy, it's not that I don't want to give you face, but Mr. Li said before he went into seclusion that no one was to disturb him. So please go back. If Yi Shuang came, Lu Chong would naturally let Yi Shuang in, but she could only enter the protective formation outside. She could not enter the golden light. As for Yi Haoran, he couldn't even place the outer array formation inside. I have something urgent to see Mr. Li. Something happened to Shuanger? What? Lu Chong was shocked. Then I'll try to inform Mr. Li, but Mr. Li is in seclusion. He may not be able to hear through the formation. Then I'll have to trouble Master Lu. Yi Haoran's heart was a little heavy. If Li Changsheng could not come out of seclusion to save Yi Shuang within 7 days, then his daughter would really become an idiot. Tony was not a kind person at first glance. Okay. Lu Chong turned and walked into the formation, coming to the golden light. Mr. Li, the patriarch of the Yi family, said that something happened to Miss Yi. He shouted 3 times in a row, but there was no response from the formation. Lu Chong could not help but smile bitterly and walked out. When Yi Haoran saw Lu Chong's expression, his heart sank to the bottom. Mr. Li did not respond. Yes. Lu Chong nodded. What's going on? Patriarchy, why don't you tell me? So Yi Haoran told Lu Chong what happened at the banquet. After pondering for a moment, Lu Chong said, it's just some barbarians. Mr. Li can't come out of seclusion. Why don't I go and meet him? Yi Haoran was a little hesitant. Seeing this, Lu Chong suddenly waved his hand. A gust of wind leaped out of thin air, and countless leaves gathered directly in his palm. He slapped out, and the leaves all rushed to a big tree next to him like darts. Suddenly, there was the sound of wind bouncing, and the leaves were embedded in the trunk of the tree. Lu Chong showed his hand, and Yi Haoran's eyes immediately lit up with hope. He immediately cupped his hands and said, Then I'll have to trouble you to make a trip, master. Yi Haoran was just an ordinary person, and he did not have much judgment about the cultivation world. In his opinion, although Tony's spiritual secret technique was terrifying, Lu Chong's technique was also very magical. Chapter 478. Therefore, Lu Chong and Yi Haoran went down the mountain. Zhu naturally followed Lu Chong. They first returned to the Lu residence. As soon as they entered, Yi Shuang's mother rushed up. What should we do? What should we do? Where's Mr. Li? Can he save Yi Shuang? Yi Haoran was still having a headache and waved his hand. Mr. Li is in seclusion, but I've invited Master Lu. Madam Yi, don't worry. I'm here. I'll help you save Miss Yi. Lu Chong stepped forward. Yi Shuang's mother stopped talking, but her eyes were red. She sat there and kept sobbing. She only had one daughter. How could she not be worried? At this time, the butler walked in and reported, Master, we've found the foreigner's information. His name is Tony, a famous soul master abroad. However, this is only his surface identity. He has another secret identity. He's the leader of a mysterious international organization. That mysterious organization is very powerful, but we can't find out the details with the Yi family's power. After saying that, he handed a printed document to Yi Haoran. Yi Haoran handed it to Lu Chong. Lu Chong picked up the paper and looked at it, but he couldn't help but frown. There was basically no useful information in this file. There was no description of Tony's strength at all. Forget it. Let's go to his place in the suburbs to find him first. Lu Chong stood up. Yi Haoran had already arranged for a car outside. At this moment, in a villa in the suburbs, Tony was drinking tea. Next to him were his disciples and subordinates. Master, that Li Chongsheng is called Mr. Li. Half a year ago, he had a conflict with an aristocratic family in the capital. It said that the family used a rocket launcher but didn't kill him. I'm afraid his strength is close to the divine level. Where did you get this information from? Tony furrowed his brows and muttered to himself. It's spreading in the capital. It's easy to find out. Haha, as the saying goes, 3 people make a tiger. These Chinese people like to exaggerate. I believe it if he could dodge bullets, but how is it possible that he can't be killed by a rocket launcher? Do you think a divine-level expert is a cabbage by the roadside? How old is that Li Chongsheng? In my opinion, he's at most at the false god realm, which is equivalent to the Vajra realm in China. Originally, this level is already very powerful. Half a year ago, I would also have to be careful when facing an expert of this level. However, in the ancient ruins, I have cultivated my secret spirit technique to the great accomplishment level. Experts of this level are no longer worthy of my attention. As long as he is not a god, he will die without a doubt. As soon as he finished speaking, the faces of the disciples were filled with reverence. Teacher, you will definitely become the only divine-level expert in this world in the past 300 years. Ha ha! Tony revealed a smug expression. At this moment, the door of the villa opened and a subordinate walked in. Master Tony, the head of the Yi family has brought an old man here to challenge you. Old man? Tony frowned. Isn't that Li Chongsheng? No. The subordinate shook his head. All right, I'll go take a look. Tony stood up and led his disciples and subordinates out of the villa. When he saw Lu Chong standing outside the door, he immediately shook his head. You can't do it. Let Li Chongsheng do it. Arrogant. Lu Chong had been cultivating at Li Chongsheng's place. His martial arts had improved, and his confidence had also increased. In the past, he was very wary of Liao Mo. Now, he was confident that he could easily defeat Liao Mo. Therefore, when he heard Liao Mo's words, he immediately showed anger on his face. You foreign devil, how dare you look down on me? Take this. As he spoke, he took a step forward and a gust of wind gathered in his hand. Then, he threw out a palm strike. It swept up the fallen leaves on the ground with an earth-shattering force. It looked quite imposing. However, when it was about to reach Tony, it seemed to be blocked by an invisible force. A blue light flashed in Tony's eyes and directly pierced towards Lu Chong. The next moment, Lu Chong seemed to be struck by lightning. There was a roar in his head, and his body retreated 3 steps. Blood flowed out from the corner of his mouth. Secret spirit technique. Lu Chong looked at Tony with fear and finally said helplessly, I lost. Yi Haoran, who was next to him, was very confident in Lu Chong. However, when he saw such a scene at this moment, he finally sighed. It seems that we can only wait for Mr. Li to make a move. Lu Chong turned around and was about to leave. You think you can come and go as you please? What do you think this is? Tony sneered. Then 2 bolts of lightning rose from his eyes. They merged into one in the air and rushed towards Lu Chong. Lightning out of thin air? Lu Chong's face suddenly changed, and he wanted to dodge. In the next moment, the lightning struck his body, sending him flying backwards. When he landed on the ground, there was a patch of black on his chest. He struggled a few times but was unable to get up. Blood continued to gush out his mouth. "Get lost." Tony smiled coldly, turned around, and walked into the villa. Lu Chong was carried into the car by Yi Haoran and the others. Half a day later, the news of the opening ceremony spread. The entire cultivation world was shaken. Li Changsheng had long been regarded as the #1 person in the cultivation world after the battle with the Dragon Temple Master in Miaojiang. In addition, he had destroyed the Danyang sect, which shocked the entire cultivation world. Now, someone had captured his woman and openly challenged him. One could imagine the sensation it caused. On the second day after Yi Shuang was captured, Ding Qingyang and Ding Qingxue of the Mount Shu sect announced that they would fight Tony on behalf of Li Changshen. In the afternoon of the same day, Ding Qingyang and Ding Qingxue came to the capital and were both seriously injured. On the third day, the former sect master of the Mount Shu sect, Sima Changkong, appeared. Sima Changkong was already at the peak of the innate realm, but he was still seriously injured. At this time, the details about Tony were also dug out. He was the #1 expert on the four-night roll. He was known as the #1 expert in the past 300 years in the Foreign Dark World. He was expected to break through to the Divine Realm before the age of 100. The Divine Realm in the West was the Xian Finger Realm in the Huaxia cultivation world. After Sima Changkong was seriously injured by Tony, the other party even threatened that there was no one in the Huaxia cultivation world. On the fourth day, Yin Shuangying of the Qingchang sword sect and Song Jun of the Wudong sect appeared at the same time and challenged Tony on behalf of the Huaxia cultivation world. In the end, Tony defeated the two of them with just a few moves. When the news spread, the entire cultivation world was speechless. Sima Changkong, Yin Shuangying, and Song Jun were already the top experts in the Huaxia cultivation world, but the two of them were defeated even when working together. On the fifth day, no other experts came out for the whole day. Countless people's eyes were fixed on the big villa on Mount Lupan, waiting for Li Changsheng, who was known as the #1 in the cultivation world, to come out and show the power of the Huaxia cultivation world. However, there was still no sign of Li Changsheng until the 6th day. Rumors spread throughout the cultivation world. Tony once again said that if Li Changsheng did not appear, he would turn Yi Shuang into a puppet at midnight and make her his 326th woman. When the news spread, the people of the Yi clan were as anxious as ants on a hot pan, suffering every minute and second. Li Changsheng's friends were also burning with anxiety and helplessness. Although everyone hated Tony to the core, no one in the entire Huaxia cultivation world could do anything to him. Chapter 479. It's already the 7th day. Why hasn't Li Changsheng shown up yet? Could it be that he's really afraid of Tony and doesn't dare to come out of the villa? I thought Li Changsheng was a hot-blooded man and regarded him as his idol. Now it seems that he's just a coward. He doesn't even dare to save his own woman. Bah, how despicable. As the days passed, rumors spread throughout the entire cultivation world, including the upper-class circle in the capital. Everyone thought that Li Changsheng was afraid of Tony, so he used seclusion as an excuse to not show up. In the Yi family's mansion, Yi Haoran and his wife were crying every day. Lu Chong returned to the mountaintop villa. He was seriously injured by Tony that day. Every step he took now seemed to take all his strength. He walked to the front of the array and shouted at the golden light every day. Unfortunately, there was no response at all. "Master, I think you should stop shouting." Li Changsheng is clearly pretending to be deaf and mute. He doesn't dare to face Tony. You can never wake up a person who's pretending to be asleep. Hearing Azu's words, Lu Chong immediately widened his eyes. "Shut up. How could Mr. Li be afraid of that foreign devil? Don't talk nonsense." Although Lu Chong severely reprimanded his disciple, he began to have some doubts in his heart. On the 7th day, many people in the cultivation world who heard the news gathered at the foot of Mount Lupan. If Li Changsheng didn't dare to stand up and fight today, Not only would Yi Shuang die, but it would also mean that the entire cultivation world of Huaxiao would be trampled under Tony's feet. Li Changsheng was known as the #1 person in the cultivation world of Huaxia. This was not only a title, but also an honor. Do you think Li Changsheng will show up? There is a lot of discussion at the foot of the mountain. It's been 7 days. If he showed up, he would have shown up long ago. I don't think there's a chance. Back when cultivation was prosperous in Huaxia, these barbarians were like rats crossing the street. They didn't catch a cold at all. Now, the tables have turned. Many people sighed with emotion. Time ticked by, and it was almost noon. Everyone's hearts gradually sank. Yi Haoran's body swayed as he walked up Lupan Mountain. After being injured by Tony's secret spiritual technique, he felt that his body was getting worse and worse. This was the terror of the secret spirit technique. It was impossible to see any injuries on the body, but it directly affected the mind. Moreover, the damage to the mind could not be healed. If this continued, Yi Haoran would die in less than 3 years. However, Yi Haoran couldn't care less about his body at this moment. He walked up the mountain step by step. This time, Lu Chong directly opened the protective array outside and came before the golden light. When he wanted to step into the golden light, he was suddenly pushed back a few steps by an invisible force. Lu Chong hurriedly said, "Patriarchy, this array has a very strong defense. You can't barge in. Otherwise, even a Vajra realm martial expert would be injured, let alone you. Mr. Li's attainments in array formations are very terrifying." Hearing Lu Chong's words, Yi Haoran could not help but sneer. Since Mr. Li is so powerful, why doesn't he dare to come out when his girlfriend is about to be killed? What a coward. If Yi Haoran still believed that Li Changsheng was in seclusion at the beginning, then these few days he was full of resentment and even hatred for Li Changsheng. Mr. Li can't hear the sound outside at all. He is in seclusion. Lu Chong explained. Can't hear it? He obviously doesn't dare to. Hearing Yi Haoran's words, Lu Chong stopped talking. He looked at the constantly surging golden light again with a bitter smile on his face. Now, the entire Chinese cultivation world and the entire upper-class circle in the capital were looking at Li Changsheng. However, Li Changsheng was hiding inside like a coward. He said that he was in seclusion, but even Lu Chong didn't believe it. In the suburbs, many people had gathered outside Tony's villa. They were all rich people who attended the opening ceremony that day. At that time, Tony said that he would wait for Li Changsheng here, so everyone came to watch the show. Of course, they didn't dare to get close to Tony's villa. They just watched from afar. Jiang Tao and his son, Zhang Xiaofeng, and Yang Fan were also among them. Do you think Li Changsheng will show up? Yang Fan also frowned. At the Christmas banquet in Qingzhou, Yi Shuang came from the capital to help. It could be said that she was very affectionate. If Changsheng doesn't show up today, even I will look down on him. Hearing Yang Fan's words, Jiang Tao also said, yes, as long as he is a man, he should stand up at this time. Whether he is Tony's opponent or not, he can't back down. At 3 o'clock in the afternoon, everyone who was waiting was losing their patience. At the bottom of Mount Lupan, there were already angry curses. Yi Haoran pointed at the golden light and shouted, Li Changsheng, you coward. Shuang, is blind to have taken a fancy to you. The faces of the masters of the various families in the capital, the cultivators, including Ding Qingxue and Ding Qingyang, were extremely ugly. Could it be that this is the real Li Changsheng, a heartless and selfish villain? Ding Qingxue's eyes were full of complex emotions. Yi Shuang was another woman of Li Changsheng. Logically speaking, she and Ding Qingxue should be rivals in love. However, at this moment, she desperately hoped that Li Changsheng would stand up. Otherwise, it would prove that Li Changsheng was not worthy of her love. Ding Qingyang didn't say anything, but the expression on his face had already explained everything. He admired Li Changsheng's strength, but he had doubts about his character. 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock. Although it was summer, it was close to dusk. The sun was about to set, and the sunset glow made everyone's faces red. I think Li Changsheng doesn't dare to show up. Everyone, let's disperse. Those who originally had expectations for Li Changsheng had become depressed at this moment. I pity the eldest daughter of the Yi family. People shook their heads. However, although there were many disappointed voices in the crowd, they didn't really disperse. No one left. Everyone was still looking forward to the last moment. 20 o'clock. There was only a little bit of sun left. Let's go. Let's go to Tony's place and see what that poor woman will become in the end. Just when someone had chosen to take a step forward, the golden light condensed by the evil gathering formation on the top of the mountain suddenly fluctuated. Yi Haoran's angry curses came to an abrupt end as he stared at the golden light. At the next moment, a rumbling sound was heard. The countless golden lights quickly converged and moved to the center like rivers flowing to the sea. The luxurious villa gradually became visible. Yi Haoran's face was full of excitement, and he couldn't stop his tears from flowing. Lu Chong and his disciple also clenched their fists. A few seconds later, a figure appeared on the wide road leading to the villa in the eyes of countless people. He slowly walked, but with each step, his body crossed a distance of more than 100 feet. In the blink of an eye, he had arrived at the foot of the mountain. At this moment, the whole world fell silent. Chapter 480. Those mocking Li Changsheng just now had disappeared. Everyone was looking at that seemingly slow figure that seemed to shrink the ground into an inch. Many of them had excitement in their eyes, especially Ding Qingxue, whose eyes were already tearing up. Li Changsheng, I really didn't misjudge you. Ding Qingyang, Sima Changkong, and the rest were also excited. Li Changsheng walked down a mountain and walked into the distance step by step. Whether it was acquaintances or strangers, he didn't stop at all. When his figure quickly disappeared before everyone's eyes, a scream came from the crowd. What are you guys still doing here? Go to the scene. A big battle is about to begin. His words woke countless people up, and everyone rushed to the location of Tony's arranged battle, as if they had just woken up from a dream. At this moment, in Tony's villa, Yi Shuang looked haggard. She was tied to a pillar, and her eyes were filled with hatred as she glared at Tony. Little girl, you don't have to glare at me. It's 8:30 now. If your lover doesn't appear in 3.5 hours, you will become my slave. Hee hee. Ha! Tony couldn't help but let out a complacent laugh. At this moment, there was a sudden commotion outside. What's going on? Tony frowned. At this moment, a loud rumbling sound was heard, and the entire room shook violently. A 3-foot sword fell from the sky and stabbed into the courtyard. A figure stood proudly on top of the sword. Tony, come out and accept your death. A voice came and echoed in all directions. Tony suddenly sat up from the sofa. After the initial shock, there was a hint of playfulness on his face. This Li Changsheng actually came. How bold of him. After finishing his words, Tony opened the door and walked out. The surroundings fell into silence. Everyone knew that the battle that they had been waiting for 7 days had finally arrived. You're Li Changsheng? Tony was still wearing a white coat, looking like a benevolent elder. However, the extent of his viciousness and mercilessness, if his past deeds were to be revealed, it would definitely cause one's expression to change. Tony, let her go. I'll fight you. Li Changsheng said coldly. Tony shook his head. If you want to see your girlfriend, you have to defeat me first. As soon as he finished speaking, Li Changsheng suddenly soared into the sky. The sword in his hand also flew up from the ground and into Li Changsheng's hand. Hula! The dazzling sword light slashed down with a whistling sound. Tony didn't expect Li Changsheng to make a move just like that, but he soon sneered. Your Huaxia swordsmanship is nothing more than this in my eyes. Just as he finished speaking, the sword light had already descended. Tony waved his hand, and a transparent light shield appeared around his body. Let me show you the power of my protective barrier. Just as Tony opened his mouth, a cracking sound was heard, and the transparent protective shield was instantly shattered by the sword light. Immediately after, the sword light slashed onto Tony's body, sending him flying back like a kite with its string cut. He only landed after a few dozen meters, and there was blood at the corner of his mouth. At this moment, all the sounds in the surroundings quieted down. Only the whistling of the wind could be heard. In the past few days, Tony had defeated the experts of the Huaxia cultivation world, which had created an impression of invincibility in everyone's hearts. But who would have thought that Li Changsheng would seriously injure him with just one sword strike? The people who had rushed over from Lupan Mountain just happened to witness the scene of Li Changsheng sending Tony flying. They all widened their eyes. In the next moment, Tony struggled to stand up from the ground and looked at Li Changsheng with a gaze full of fear. Not to mention others who didn't expect it. Even he didn't expect Li Changsheng to be so strong. It seems that I've underestimated you. Tony snorted coldly. There was a whirlpool spinning in his eyes. In the next moment, 2 bolts of lightning shot out from his eyes and merged into an electric dragon in the sky. The moment the electric dragon flew out, many people in the cultivation world exclaimed, "Lightning out of thin air. This is lightning out of thin air." The other party is a profound finger realm expert, and at the peak of the profound finger realm. The Dragon Temple Master has only just entered the profound finger realm. Li Changsheng is in trouble this time. This will definitely be a fierce battle. What trouble? Wasn't he sent flying by Mr. Li's sword just now? You're thinking too simply. The reason why Li Changsheng could send him flying with one sword strike was because the other party was careless. Moreover, although Li Changsheng's swordsmanship and physical body can be said to be the pinnacle of the human world, Tony cultivates a spiritual secret art. The spiritual secret art is powerful in the power of the soul, but the physical body isn't his strong suit. The lightning out of thin air isn't real lightning, but a manifestation of the spiritual secret art. It directly attacks one's mind and can't be blocked at all. Hearing the other party's words, the hearts of the people who were originally full of confidence in Li Changsheng sank again. Spiritual power was formless and mysterious. In the entire cultivation world of the Central Plains, there were no sects that specialized in spiritual secret arts. Therefore, people were instinctively afraid of the unknown. The 2 bolts of lightning struck down at Li Changsheng. Facing this, Li Changsheng's face didn't change at all. He just shouted, and the sword in his hand shone brightly as he slashed out again. My spiritual secret art seems to have a form, but it's actually formless. How could your sword light possibly block it? Tony smugly said. But a moment later, his face was replaced with shock. Under the sword light, the lightning dragon was directly scattered in the air and then fell without any obstruction. Block for me. Ignoring the shock in his heart, Tony hurriedly waved his hands and formed a barrier of light. But just like last time, the barrier of light was extremely fragile under the sword light and shattered. Once again, he was sent flying. This time, his body was pierced by the sword light, and a bloody wound appeared from his shoulder to his abdomen. If he had retreated just a little slower, he would have been cut in half. Hiss! Tony couldn't help but gasp as the hairs on his body stood on end. Li Changsheng was too terrifying. Just how did you break through my spiritual secret art? Tony stared at Li Changsheng, his voice trembling. He couldn't understand why. His spiritual power was formless and formless. Logically speaking, no matter how powerful an attack was, it should be impossible to break through his spiritual attack. How would a barbarian like you know the mystery of Huaxia's martial arts? A swordsman can break all techniques with a single sword. Do you think that your spiritual secret art can't break through it? Hearing Li Changsheng's voice, Tony gritted his teeth, and his eyes were filled with resentment. You forced me to do this. As soon as he finished speaking, a wooden staff appeared in front of him and floated in the air. As he gestured, the staff suddenly rose into the air. At the top of the staff, a blue gem bloomed with light waves like water ripples, covering an area of 100 meters. At the next moment, Tony chanted an incantation, and the light waves formed densely packed weapons in the air. There were a total of 30,000 swords. Then, like a rain of weapons, they rained down on Li Changsheng like a long river. These weapons were not real weapons, but condensed by spiritual power. They also attacked one's spiritual power, but were 100 times more powerful than the lightning dragon just now. It was all thanks to the staff. This is the staff I got from the ancient ruins. This attack is already comparable to the divine state. You should feel honored to die under this staff today. Tony's smug voice came from below. Chapter 481. As soon as he finished speaking, the densely packed weapons instantly shrouded Li Changsheng. The vast and mighty aura caused the void to be distorted. Your so-called God-level strength is ultimately not God-level. Moreover, even if a God-level expert from the West is in front of me, I can still kill him. Li Changsheng's indifferent voice came out from the encirclement of countless weapons. Immediately after, a sword light soared into the sky and directly broke through the countless weapons. Then, a figure rushed out from inside. Who else could it be but Li Changsheng? Insignificant skill. Come and take a sword from me. As soon as Li Changsheng finished speaking, the sword light soared into the sky and slashed down again. How is this possible? Tony's expression changed drastically. In the next moment, the wooden staff in the air collided with the sword light. Bang! It was a loud sound. The staff flew backward and fell to the ground. At the same time, Li Changsheng's sword light was actually neutralized. This time, even Li Changsheng let out a cry of surprise. He didn't expect the staff to be so sturdy. Tony's heart, which was originally in his mouth, was slightly relieved. He let out a long sigh of relief. If the staff couldn't block Li Changsheng's sword light, then this time, he would probably be cut in half. Fortunately, he reached out and took the staff back. You can block my sword, but I don't know if you can block 10 or 20 of my swords. As soon as Li Changsheng finished speaking, he raised the long sword in his hand again and slashed down. Under the sword light, Tony hurriedly raised his staff to block it. This time, although he blocked Li Changsheng's attack, he was also sent flying dozens of meters away by the powerful force. As soon as the first sword stopped, the second sword light had already descended. This time, Tony held the staff with both hands to block the sword light. Dense cracks appeared on the ground under his feet. Boom! A deep pit was formed. When he crawled out of the pit with a dusty face, Li Changsheng's voice came again. The third sword. At this moment, Tony was vomiting blood. When he saw the sword light, fear finally appeared in his eyes. How can you use such a powerful attack infinitely? Indeed, in his opinion, no matter how strong Li Changsheng was, such a powerful attack would consume a terrifying amount of energy. How would he keep using it? However, no one answered his doubts. The fourth sword had already slashed down. Tony's body was sent flying again. The fifth sword, the sixth sword, and the seventh sword. In the sky, Li Changsheng swung his sword 7 times in a row. 7 sword lights fell one after another. Crack! Finally, the sturdy staff cracked under the sword light and broke into 2 pieces. The next moment, Tony's body was slashed by the sword light. This expert, who was ranked number 1 on the night ranking, had his body split into 2 from the middle. He had died an unnatural death. At this moment, countless people breathed a sigh of relief. It had only been a few minutes since Li Changsheng had appeared to fight Tony. Within a few minutes, Tony, who was unstoppable in the world of Huaxia's cultivators, had been suppressed by Li Changsheng from beginning to end. The outcome was set when Tony was cut in half by the sword. Li Changsheng is worthy of being the number 1 expert in the world of Huaxia's cultivators. His swordsmanship is simply unparalleled. The last battle between him and the Dragon Temple Master showed his terrifying physical strength. I thought that although he was powerful, he didn't deserve to be the chief of the Sword Alliance. But now, it seems that the position of the chief of the Sword Alliance belongs to him. He's really the pride of our world of Huaxia's cultivators. He has greatly increased the prestige of our world of Huaxia's cultivators. Tony is ranked number 1 on the night ranking. After today, Li Changsheng's name will be known throughout the West. Huaxia is mighty. There was a burst of discussion below. The doubts, curses, and insults against Li Changsheng had all disappeared and turned into praise, and pride. At the next moment, Li Changsheng descended from the sky. In the villa, several of Tony's disciples and subordinates knelt on the ground before Li Changsheng spoke, their bodies trembling. Li Changsheng didn't pay attention to them at all and directly walked into the villa. When he saw Yi Shuang tied to a pillar, he waved his hand and the rope fell off. Yi Shuang directly threw herself into Li Changsheng's arms. "You've suffered." Li Changsheng patted her shoulder. It wasn't until a few minutes later that Yi Shuang let go of Li Changsheng with a red face. Li Changsheng took Yi Shuang's hand and walked out of the villa. Tony's subordinates were still kneeling on the ground. "Hello, Mr. Li. Mr. Li is mighty." Loud cheers came from the crowd. At this moment, Yi Haoran rushed out of the crowd and burst into tears when he saw his daughter, who had become haggard but was safe and sound. "Mr. Li, you're the savior of my family." After saying that, he was about to kneel before Li Changsheng. However, Li Changsheng gently dragged him with his hand, and he could no longer kneel. "Uncle Yi, we'll be a family from now on." Upon hearing Li Changsheng's words, Yi Haoran was stunned for a moment. Then, he understood something, and a sincere smile appeared on his face. "Take Yi Shuang back first. I still have some things to deal with." After Li Changsheng finished speaking, Yi Haoran hurriedly nodded and walked into the car with his daughter. Just as Yi Haoran's car turned around and left, Li Changsheng waved his hand and a sword light fell. The heads of Tony's subordinates and disciples who were kneeling on the ground were sent flying. Blood instantly dyed the ground red. Even though the cultivators in the field were used to all kinds of big scenes, they were still frightened when they saw this scene. The moment Li Changsheng stepped out of the villa's courtyard, the entire villa was set on fire out of thin air. The fire soared into the sky and burned for more than 10 minutes. After more than 10 minutes, when the fire gradually extinguished, the entire villa, including the bodies on the ground, disappeared. What kind of flame is this? The doors and windows of the house are all burned away. Looking around, there is only a piece of black powder left in the direction of the villa. Many ordinary people saw this scene as if they had seen a ghost. The flame could burn away cement and steel bars. How high was the temperature? It was simply unimaginable. Those cultivators were even more horrified. Ordinary people were horrified by the power of the flame, but they were horrified by Li Changsheng's realm. Even the earth flame of the Danyang sect, which was famous for controlling fire among the 6 great holy lands of Miaozhong, could not do what Li Changsheng did. Being able to do this showed that Li Changsheng not only had amazing attainments in swordsmanship, but also had reached the top level in the world in controlling fire. His swordsmanship, physical skills, and fire control were all the best in the world. Others found it difficult to cultivate only one skill, but he cultivated 3 skills at the same time and reached the peak of perfection in each of them. This was simply unheard of. The word genius is not enough to describe him. A sect leader of a cultivation sect said with a trembling voice. At the same time, 2 words flashed in the minds of many people at the same time. Monster. In their eyes, Li Changsheng was really a monster. Chapter 482. Tony, who was known as the number 1 on the night roll in the West, had lost to Li Changsheng, the number 1 cultivator in Huaxia. In Tony's villa in the suburbs, more than 30 disciples who accompanied him had all died under Li Changsheng's sword. None of them survived. When the news spread, the entire world's underground organizations were speechless. Over the years, with the decline of Huaxia's cultivation world, various relics in the West had been unearthed, causing the cultivation civilization in the West to reach a peak. Many Western forces had developed a supercilious character, thinking that Huaxia's cultivators were not worth mentioning. However, with Tony's death, it was like a slap to everyone's face, and the world was shaken. At the moment, Li Changsheng had returned to the villa on the mountaintop. Ding Qingyang, Bing Qingxue, and Sima Changkong were all guests in Li Changsheng's villa. As for the others, except for Yin Shuangying of the Qingchang sect and Song Zhen of the Wudong sect, who had stayed in Li Changsheng's villa for a while and left, The masters of the other sects were not qualified to enter. Li Changsheng and the others were sitting on the sofa. In the middle of the hall, a 20-meter-long snake was lying there. On the sofa, Yin Shuangying, Sima Changkong, and the others looked at the huge snake in horror. They were all famous figures in the cultivation world, but at this moment, the aura of the huge snake still made them feel great pressure. This is a semi-divine beast, equivalent to a Vajra realm warrior in the cultivation world. But because of its special constitution, it can even fight against a finger-profound realm warrior. After half a year of nourishment from the true dragon spirit, it will soon break through to the divine beast level, which is equivalent to a human's finger-profound realm. Hearing Li Changxing's introduction, Yin Shuangying and the others gasped. They had worked hard for most of their lives, but they could not break through to the Vajra realm. However, Li Changxing's pet was already a Vajra realm warrior. It would soon break through to the finger-profound realm. Try to think about it. Li Changsheng was able to kill a finger-profound realm expert. In addition, he had a finger-profound realm pet. Most likely, any major power in the current world would be an ant in front of Li Changsheng. After a long time, Yin Shuangying stood up and cupped his hands toward Li Changsheng. I'm truly ashamed. I've cultivated for half my life, but I've only reached the Xiantian realm. I'm going back to cultivate. Sima Changkong also stood up. In the end, Sima Changkong, Yin Shuangying, and the fifth chief Songzhen took their leave, leaving behind only Ding Qingyang and Ding Qingxue. Longevity, I will be leaving as well. Although Ding Qingxue was a little reluctant, she still said it. Didn't you say that you wanted to come to the capital to look for me? Since you're already here, why not stay for a few more days? Recently, I've been refining a pair of celestial treasures with my brother. This concerns the rise and fall of Shushan in the next few hundred years. I can't be careless. I can only put my personal affairs aside. Hearing Ding Qingshue's words, Li Changxing nodded. He knew that Ding Qingxue was different from the other girls he knew. Ding Qingxue had grown up in Shushan and regarded Shushan as more important than her own life. She always considered the interests of the sect first. All right, since that's the case, I won't force you. Li Changxing no longer urged her to stay. After Ding Qingyang and Ding Qingxue left, only Li Changsheng and Lu Chong were left in the villa. You two will cultivate in this villa in the future. I've finally broken through to the Vajra realm this time. It's time for me to go back to Qingzhou. Hearing Li Changxing's words, Lu Chong hurriedly nodded while secretly surprised. Vajra realm. Didn't this mean that before Li Changsheng went into seclusion, he was only in the Xiantian realm when he defeated the Dragon Temple Master? It was simply shocking to hear that a Xiantian realm expert defeated a finger-profound realm expert. Could this Mr. Li be the reincarnation of an ancient sect? Lu Chang's heart was filled with stormy waves. Li Changsheng had already walked out of the villa, with Fu Tuesday Fu Tu was the name of Li Changxing's newly refined puppet. During his seclusion, Li Changsheng had refined a puppet on a whim. This puppet was like a robot. Of course, it was not completely without thoughts. Li Changsheng had used a secret method to reshape a soul for it. It was just that this soul was completely loyal to Li Changsheng, and its ability to think was not strong. As soon as he walked down the mountain, he saw a black Mercedes-Benz car parked on the road. The door opened, and a graceful figure came out. It was Yi Shuang's best friend, Man and I. Man and I walked over angrily, followed by two burly men. Li Changsheng, did you paralyze Fongda? Man and I looked coldly at Li Changsheng and asked loudly. Yes. Li Changsheng nodded. You're really bold to admit it directly. Then don't blame me for being rude. With a wave of her hand, the two burly men surrounded Li Changsheng. In their hands, they were holding daggers that glittered with cold light. It seems that you're here to avenge your boyfriend. Li Changxing smiled. Then Fu Tu, who was behind him, took a step forward. Fu Tu was 2 meters tall, and his muscles were especially powerful. He was like a small mountain. The two burly men brought by Man and I suddenly looked a lot smaller in front of Fu Tuesday. After the two burly men saw Fu Tu, their footsteps could not help but stop, but soon a cold light flashed in their eyes. Being tall doesn't mean you can fight. One of the burly men coldly snorted and waved his dagger to stab Fu Tuesday. However, the next moment, Fu Tu waved his hand and directly grasped his dagger. With a slight force, the dagger made of tempered steel was directly broken into two pieces. How could this be? The burly man's face could not help but change. Before he could react, he saw a huge fist coming toward him. Under the punch, the burly man's cheek was smashed into a bloody mess. He fell to the ground, and his limbs were constantly shaking. The other burly man was not scared to run away. He was quite professional, waving his dagger and trying to sneak an attack on Fu Tu's waist. The next moment, Fu Tu turned around and smiled. Then he suddenly kicked out and kicked the burly man's lower abdomen, sending him flying more than 3 meters away and landing on the ground. The two assassins that Man and I had spent a lot of money to hire were taken care of just like that. Don't come over. The smile on Man Ni's face had long disappeared, and she stammered. Li Changsheng smiled and shook his head. For the sake of you being Yi Shuang's best friend, I'll spare you today, but I hope you won't be stupid. If there's a next time, Fangda's end will be your end. Also, your boyfriend is not a good thing. I made him a vegetable, but I actually saved you. After that, Li Changxing no longer paid attention to her. He bypassed the car on the road and walked down. Man Ni's hanging heart was relieved. She turned around and saw that in just a few seconds, Li Changsheng was already hundreds of meters away. How is this possible? Man Ni's eyes widened. She remembered what Fangda said to her on the hospital bed. Li Changsheng was not an ordinary person, but a devil. Chapter 483. Li Changsheng went down the mountain and prepared to return to Qingzhou. However, before he left, he wanted to say goodbye to Yi Shuang. However, before he reached the Yi family, he received a call from Yi Shuang. Changsheng, can you come to my house? My father wants to see you. Hearing Yi Shuang's words, Li Changsheng smiled and said, I'll be at your house in 10 minutes. In the Yi family's hall, the head of the Yi family, Yi Haoran, was sitting in his seat. Beside him sat a tall man wearing casual clothes. His posture was very casual, but his aura was much stronger than Yi Haoran's. As the head of the Yi family, Yi Haoran could be said to be a top figure in the secular world. However, his aura was inferior to his. Mr. Chu, Mr. Li will be here soon. You could talk to him later. However, although Mr. Li is young, you have to maintain enough respect for him. Otherwise, if you make Mr. Li unhappy, you can't bear the consequences. Hearing Yi Haoran's words, the other party curled his lips. I came to find Mr. Li because I have investigated him. There's no need for the head of the Yi family to remind me. However, I still need to verify whether he is as powerful as the rumors say. At this moment, the door to the hall opened. A Yi family bodyguard respectfully led Li Changsheng in. As soon as Li Changsheng appeared, Yi Haoran hurriedly stood up to welcome him. Mr. Chu, who was sitting there, looked curiously at Li Changsheng. He didn't expect that the famous Mr. Li in Beijing would have such an ordinary appearance. He was slightly surprised. Uncle Yi, I heard from Yi Shuang that you were looking for me. May I know what's the matter? Li Changsheng naturally noticed Mr. Chu sitting there, but he didn't care. Even if there's nothing, can I look for you? The matter between you and Shuang isn't a secret. If you have nothing to do, you should come to the house more often. Yi Haoran's words were undoubtedly announcing his relationship with Li Changsheng to Mr. Chu. Mr. Chu was expressionless. After Li Changsheng sat down, he said, Nice to meet you. My name is Chu Liushang. This time, I'm representing the Heavenly Tao Alliance to inspect you. Congratulations, you've been included in the Heavenly Tao Alliance's list. Hearing the other party's words, Li Changsheng was confused. Heavenly Law Union? What is that? When the word thing came out, the smile on Chu Liushang's face disappeared and was replaced by a cold aura. The Heavenly Law Alliance is the guardian of China. Please watch your words. After that, he looked coldly at Li Changsheng. Yi Haoran's face instantly turned pale. Under that powerful aura, he almost couldn't breathe. Huh. Li Changsheng raised his eyelids. Suddenly, the cold aura disappeared without a trace. The other party was a little surprised, but he still said coldly, Li Changsheng, I've also looked into your information. You defeated the Dragon God Temple Master and killed Tony, the #1 Soul Master on the 4-night leaderboard. It can be said that you're young and promising. However, I'm afraid you don't know what kind of existence the Heavenly Tao Alliance is. The Heavenly Tao Alliance was established thousands of years ago and has always been responsible for protecting China. We have countless experts in the Heavenly Tao Alliance. Even today, when spirit energy is scarce, we still have more than 10 Vajra Realm experts and 5-finger Profound Realm experts. Moreover, all of them are stronger than the Dragon God Temple Master. After that, Chu Yoshang looked at Li Changsheng proudly. In his opinion, the Heavenly Tao Alliance's lineup was enough to intimidate the young man in front of him. However, Li Changsheng just shrugged his shoulders. So what? What does it have to do with me? Li Changsheng, the Heavenly Tao Alliance, is the most powerful organization in China. Those who can join the Heavenly Tao Alliance are all top-notch experts without exception. Even the sect masters of the various cultivation sects are not qualified. However, you were chosen by the Heavenly Tao Alliance. This time, I'm inviting you to join the Heavenly Tao Alliance on the orders of the Alliance Master. However, the Heavenly Tao Alliance is not a place where anyone can join. If you want to join, you have to pass the 3 tests of the Heavenly Tao Alliance. No need. I'm not interested in joining the Heavenly Tao Alliance. Before the other party could finish, Li Changsheng interrupted him. The other party asked him to join the Heavenly Tao Alliance with a sense of superiority, as if he was doing charity. If the other party had asked him to join, and it was an organization that protected China, Li Changsheng might have agreed. After all, he was also a descendant of the Yellow Emperor. However, with the other party's attitude, Li Changsheng naturally wouldn't take the test humbly. What did you say? Chu Yoshang's expression froze. In the past, when the Heavenly Tao Alliance asked the experts to join, all of them were extremely excited. This was the first time he had been rejected. Are you sure? He asked again. Of course I'm sure. Do you think I'm joking with you? After saying that, Li Changsheng waved his hand. I think you should go back to where you came from. I won't join the Heavenly Tao Alliance. This time, Chu Yoshang's face suddenly became awkward. This time, the Alliance Master of the Heavenly Tao Alliance had sent him to invite Li Changsheng to join. However, he felt that other people who wanted to join the Heavenly Tao Alliance had to go through 3 tests. Although Li Changsheng was now famous in the world of cultivation in China, he should be treated the same as everyone else. Moreover, in Chu Yoshang's eyes, the entire world of cultivation in China, including the foreign forces, was now a small fry. The truly powerful ones, like the Heavenly Tao Alliance, and some of the foreign super organizations are the real powerhouses. Li Changsheng was just a general among dwarves. There was no need to give him special treatment. Who knew that Li Changsheng would reject him so straightforwardly, putting him in an awkward position? This, Chu Yoshang said in a deep voice. Li Changsheng, I'll give you one last chance. You have to think it through. Joining the Heavenly Tao Alliance is definitely not just joining an organization. You will enjoy many cultivation resources, and the Heavenly Tao Alliance will be your backer and protect you. Do you think that Tony is just the #1 on the night roll? He has a super powerful force behind him. If you kill him, the people from that force will definitely cause trouble for you. Even if you have the strength of the Finger Profound Realm, you can fight 1 person. Can you fight 8 or 10 people? I've said that I have no interest in joining the Heavenly Tao Alliance. Li Changsheng still said the same thing. Chu Yoshang's eyes suddenly showed anger. You don't know what's good for you. Uncle Yi, please see the guest out. Li Changsheng looked at Yi Haoran next to him. After all, they were in the Yi family. If they were in his villa at the top of the mountain, Li Changsheng would have already slapped him out. Li Changsheng really did not have a good impression of him when he came to ask him to join some organization and still had such a sense of superiority. Mr. Chu, I think you should go back and reflect. When you correct your attitude, then come find Mr. Li. I've said that Mr. Li is not an ordinary person. Surnamed Li, you will regret what you did today. Chu Liushang flicked his sleeves and walked out of the hall. Chapter 484. At this moment, on the second floor of the villa, Yi Shuang was chatting with her mother. That Chu guy downstairs is as arrogant as a rooster. I don't know why he's looking for Changsheng. Your father said that Chu's identity is not simple. Although our Yi family is the top wealthy family in the capital, if we offend Mr. Chu, I'm afraid we won't have a good ending. Yi Shuang's mother said worriedly. Don't worry, Mom. No matter what his identity is, with Changsheng around, we don't have to be afraid of him. Yi Shuang always had blind faith in Li Changsheng. You worship Li Changsheng too much. Yi Shuang's mother smiled. However, thinking of the last time when Yi Shuang was taken away by Tony, the Yi family tried everything but to no avail. It was Li Changsheng who personally solved the problem. At this moment, they saw Chu Liushang walk out angrily. Yi Shuang smiled and said, Did you see that? Mr. Chu is like a defeated rooster now. He has lost all his spirit. Changsheng must have taught him a lesson. Hearing her daughter's words, Yi Shuang's mother smiled but showed some worry. Li Changsheng had been too arrogant recently. In her opinion, this might not be a good thing. Mr. Chu has a powerful background. Li Changsheng's actions are a bit reckless. At this moment, footsteps came from the stairs. Li Changsheng walked up. Yi Shuang's mother wanted to say a few words of advice. However, thinking that the Yi family had received so much kindness from Li Changsheng and that Li Changsheng was not an ordinary junior, she finally shook her head and walked downstairs, leaving Yi Shuang and Li Changsheng alone. Downstairs, Yi Haoran also frowned. Hubby, what happened downstairs just now? Why did I see that Mr. Chu was very unhappy when he left? Hearing his wife's words, Yi Haoran also sighed. That Mr. Chu did not know what was good for him and was disrespectful to Mr. Li. He deserved to be angered and left. However, the power behind him is not ordinary. Although Changsheng is powerful, I'm still afraid that he will be at a disadvantage. Li Changsheng naturally didn't care about the Heavenly Tao Union. After going to the second floor, he threw the matter of winding merchant to the back of his mind. He would be returning to Qingzhou soon, and he enjoyed spending time alone with Yi Shuang. After staying with Yi Shuang in the capital for 2 days, Li Changsheng once again experienced the feeling of the mortal world. The two of them went shopping, went to the movies, and went for a drive. On the third day, Li Changsheng finally set foot on his journey back to Qingzhou. Li Changsheng took the train back to Qingzhou. Originally, with his current status, as long as he said a word, the heads of the aristocratic families in Beijing would personally drive him back. However, Li Changsheng did not want to make it public. Sitting on the train, Fu Tu followed behind him like a loyal bodyguard. Who knew that after he finished speaking, Fu Tu just stood there without the slightest reaction. Sun Hongji suddenly had to give up. He just looked at Li Changsheng with a somewhat bad look. Li Changsheng did not pay attention to him. Instead, he folded his arms and began to close his eyes. Along the way, the other party and Li Changsheng did not say a word. After getting off the station, he saw more than a dozen black-clothed bodyguards waiting outside for a long time. After Sun Hongji appeared, he was immediately surrounded by bodyguards and walked out of the station. Looking at the other party's formation, it was obvious that the person he offended was not ordinary. Otherwise, there was no need to be so cautious. When Li Changsheng walked out of the station, Sun Hongji had already disappeared. Back in Qingzhou, he first arranged for Fu Tu to stay in the villa. Fu Tu's big stature was really too eye-catching. No one had lived in the villa for more than half a year, so it was covered with a layer of dust. However, in this half a year, the spirit gathering array had also gathered a lot of spiritual energy, forming a fog around it. Even when he had just returned to the villa, Li Changsheng found that many people were holding their mobile phones and taking pictures of his villa. The villa that was shrouded in fog had aroused the curiosity of many people. After Li Changsheng entered the villa, He directly opened his mouth and swallowed all the spiritual energy. With Li Changxing's current martial arts realm, this spiritual energy was just to fill the gap between his teeth. Chapter 485. After arranging food too, Li Changsheng went directly to Qingting High School. He hadn't seen Yu Wei for a long time, and he missed her. But when he arrived at the school gate, he suddenly remembered that it was already July. Yu Wei should have finished the college entrance examination, and the school was on holiday, so there were no students. With a wry smile, he called Yu Wei and learned that Yu Wei had returned to her hometown in Medicine King Valley. Hearing that Li Changsheng had returned to Qingzhou, Yu Wei was very happy and said that she would return in a few days. After hanging up the phone, Li Changsheng was thinking about where to go next. He was planning to go back to the school to take a look when a silver convertible sports car whizzed past him. In the car was a seductively dressed woman. But in the next moment, Li Changsheng's eyes widened, and his whole person stood on the spot, as if he was possessed. The woman in the car was too similar to her. In an instant, memories flooded his mind. That figure in red, when the elders of the sect stabbed Li Changsheng with a sword, resolutely blocked in front of Li Changsheng and fell in front of him. The reason why Li Changsheng chose to go to Qingzhou University was because of her. Similar. Too similar. At this moment, Li Changsheng felt like he was in a dream. By the time he reacted, the silver-gray sports car had already disappeared from his sight. However, Li Changsheng was not anxious. His figure spread out, and like a big bird, he chased in the direction where the sports car disappeared. Because the speed was too fast, when he passed by many people on the road, they couldn't see his figure at all. They only felt like a gust of wind. A few seconds later, he caught up with the sports car. He didn't follow the sports car through a few streets, and the sports car stopped in front of a bar. The seductively dressed woman opened the car door and walked into the bar. When the waiter at the door saw her, he respectfully greeted her. Obviously, she didn't come here to play, but was most likely the owner or management of the bar. Li Changsheng followed her into the bar, but was stopped by the two waiters at the door. "Sir, it's not business hours yet. Please go back." Li Changsheng looked at his watch. It was only 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Indeed, there was no one at this time in a place like the bar. "What's the name of the woman who just went in? What's her identity?" Li Changsheng was stopped by the two men, but he wasn't angry and asked. Hearing Li Changsheng's words, the two waiters laughed. "So you've taken fancy to our boss. Our boss's suitors can line up from the central avenue to the outer ring. Brother, don't think too much," one of the waiters said with a teasing tone. It was also because Li Changsheng's attire was somewhat ordinary that he dared to be so casual. "What's your boss's name? Does she come here every day?" Li Changsheng didn't care about the other party's attitude and asked again. "Our boss's name is Luo Dan. She comes here almost every day, but friend, I advise you not to have any ideas about our boss. You don't deserve her. Our boss has a lot of escorts. All of them are rich second-generation young masters. If you make them unhappy, they might break your legs or something. It's not worth it." Hearing the other party's words, Li Changsheng just smiled, then took out a pack of Zhonghua cigarettes from his pocket and stuffed it into the hands of one of the waiters. "Brother, can you make an exception and let me in? I have something to talk to your boss about." The other party shook his head directly. "No, let alone a pack. Even if you give me a pack, I can't let you in." Hearing this, Li Changsheng didn't take back the cigarette, but suddenly said, "Huh? Someone is messing with your boss's car." The two waiters subconsciously looked behind Li Changsheng, and in the next moment, Li Changsheng suddenly rushed into the bar. "F***, this kid lied to me. Someone is making trouble." Another waiter shouted loudly. The moment Li Changsheng rushed into the bar, more than a dozen strong men immediately blocked his way. And these strong men were all very strong, obviously trained. "Why is a bar so heavily guarded? Are you kidding me?" Li Changsheng muttered, then opened his mouth to speak. "I want to see your boss, Luo Dan. Please inform her." Hearing Li Changsheng's words, a strong man in a suit walked out. "I'm sorry, our boss won't meet strangers. You'd better go out now. or we'll think you're here to make trouble. What if I say no? Li Changxing smiled. I must see your boss. Then don't blame me for being rude. The leading man gave a look, and a strong man immediately walked out from behind him. He clenched his fist and directly reached out to grab Li Changxing's shoulder. In this regard, Li Changxing just chuckled. At the moment when the man's hand was about to grab him, he suddenly turned sideways, causing the man's hand to grab nothing. In the next moment, he grabbed the man's wrist as fast as lightning, and then hit the man's lower abdomen with a knee. Letting go of his hand, the strong man fell to the ground with a plop and actually lost his combat ability in an instant. At this moment, the faces of the strong men, who were originally disapproving, changed. It turns out that you have some skills. The leading man waved his hand, and the remaining dozen strong men formed a circle and approached Li Changxing step by step. Just when their circle was narrowed to the limit and they were about to make a move, the sound of footsteps came from the stairs on the second floor. A man dressed very unconventionally walked out and said, "Don't be in a hurry to make a move." The boss asked him to go up. After hearing the voice, those strong men made way one by one, but they still looked at Li Changxing with malicious eyes. Chapter 486. Li Changxing was invited into the private room. Two girls with heavy makeup were brought in to accompany Li Changxing. "Sir, we are the top hostesses here. We don't usually accompany people." The girl in the blue short skirt was slim and had long hair. She looked like she was about 18 or 19 years old. She would definitely be a campus belle if she was outside, but in here, it was inevitable that she would have a bit of a prostitute. "My name is Lan Lan. This is Xiao Ru." The girl took the initiative to pour a glass of wine. The girl next to her turned on the TV screen in the private room. "Sir, do you want to sing?" Li Changxing raised his hand to stop Lan Lan, who was about to hand him a glass of wine, then shook his head and said, "I'm tone deaf. I don't like singing. You can sing. I'll just listen." The two girls looked at each other. Obviously, they couldn't figure out Li Changxing's identity. They didn't drink or sing in this bar, and it wasn't time for business, but they were called over by the manager. The manager didn't say who the other party was, just said to take care of him. Although she was puzzled, the girl named Xiao Ru still chose a recent popular song. The speaker's volume wasn't high, so it didn't seem so noisy. The girl named Xiao Lan took the initiative to chat with Li Changxing with a hint of probing. "Sir, I don't know what you do. You came to the bar so early in the morning. Do you know our manager? Otherwise, he wouldn't open the bar for you at this time." "I don't know your manager. If I say I'm your boss's boyfriend, would you believe me?" Li Changxing smiled. He picked up the jasmine tea next to him and took a sip. The girl named Xiao Lan was stunned for a moment, but she quickly shook her head and said, "Our boss knows many people, but she doesn't have a boyfriend." After staying in the private room for more than 10 minutes, the cup of flower tea was finished. Li Changxing put his arms on the sofa on both sides, muted the screen that was playing songs, and said, "Okay, it's time to call your boss in." The two girls looked at each other in dismay and thought, "Who is this person? Why is he looking for our boss by name?" Our boss isn't someone that anyone can meet." After hesitating for a moment, the girl named Lan Lan said. However, just as he finished speaking, the door of the private room was opened. The bar owner, Luo Dan, who was wearing a uniform and had a cold expression, walked in. The two girls hurriedly stood up from the sofa. Among the staff of the bar, there were many stories about this boss. What kind of rich second generation from some company came to make trouble? With just a phone call, his father and the entire senior management of the family knelt in front of the door to apologize. There was also a certain big shot from the underworld of Qingzhou who had taken a fancy to the bar and wanted to snatch it from him. In the end, that power disappeared from Qingzhou overnight. There were too many such rumors, but without exception, they all showed that the owner of the bar was not an ordinary person. Luo Dan walked in, followed by a neat row of strongmen. The two girls wanted to say something, but Luo Dan only gave them a sharp look. The two girls understood and walked out of the room. Li Changsheng lit a cigarette and looked at the unusually charming face under the dim light. It overlapped with the woman in red who fell in front of him in his memory. Similar. It was too similar. I heard that you were looking for me. Luo Dan frowned. You hurt my subordinates and came here to make trouble. I don't care who you are. Go back and tell your master that no one can touch my place. With that, she walked up and poured a glass of beer. She gestured to Li Changsheng and then drank it in one gulp. Friend, I've given you face. Please do as you please. If you still want to play here, everything will be free of charge today. I still have something to do, so I won't accompany you. With that, she turned around and left. She was straightforward and very stylish. After a while, the two girls came in again, but this time, their faces were obviously more reserved than before. It was the first time that they had seen someone who could alarm the bar owner. At this moment, in the office on the second floor of the bar, Luo Dan had a sneer on her face. It's not very peaceful recently. The Qing gang's matter hasn't been solved yet, and now there's a young man of unknown origin. I just looked at the surveillance video. His strength is not ordinary. It seems that this is really an eventful period. With that, she looked at a middle-aged man who was standing there with a respectful face. Later, go and ask the two girls what that young man said to them. Don't miss any details. Yes, the middle-aged man hurriedly nodded. In the private room, the girl named Lon Lon asked cautiously, Brother, what business do you do? I can tell that you're not ordinary just by looking at your temperament. Hearing the other party's words, Li Changsheng almost spat out the water in his mouth. It's the first time that someone said that he's not ordinary. He smiled. If I said that I sell arms, would you believe me? Tanks, bombs, aircraft carriers, and so on. I have thousands of good brothers under me, the kind that kills without blinking an eye. Hearing Li Changsheng's words, the two girls were dumbfounded, somewhat dumbfounded. Ha ha ha. Li Changsheng couldn't help but laugh a few times and then stood up. Let's call it a day. Tell your boss that I'll come to her another day. With that, he directly walked out of the private room. When he walked to the door of the bar, a strong man suddenly stood up and blocked Li Changsheng's way. He said coldly, You hit my brother. Do you dare to fight with me? Looking at the explosive muscles of the man, he should have reached the peak of obvious strength. Among ordinary people, he could be considered a master. However, Li Changsheng shook his head. You're not qualified to fight with me. What did you say? The strong man's eyes suddenly became as big as copper bells. He was about to get angry. At this time, a voice came from upstairs. De Zhuang, don't mess around. Get out of the way. At the railing on the second floor, a middle-aged man was standing there. Li Changsheng couldn't help but laugh. This name is too funny. The man named De Zhuang gnashed his teeth in anger, but he didn't dare to disobey the middle-aged man's order. He let Li Changsheng walk out of the bar. Manager, why don't you let me teach him a lesson? He's so arrogant. How can I not teach him a lesson? Hearing De Zhuang's words, the middle-aged man shook his head. You're no match for him. You're just asking for humiliation. How is that possible? Even if he can defeat Little Tree, I'm confident that I can defeat him in 10 moves. De Zhuang said with some dissatisfaction. Hearing this, the middle-aged man smiled and didn't say anything. If the boss was afraid of him and wanted to toast him personally, how could he be so simple? Chapter 487. After leaving the bar, Li Changsheng planned to return to the villa. It was the holidays now, and there was no one at school. But just a few steps out of the door, he saw a familiar figure on the road. Ma-Yi, why are you here? Hearing the voice, Ma-Yi turned his head. When he saw Li Changsheng, his face showed surprise. I haven't seen you since school started after the new year. There were a few meetings in class, and you didn't reply to my text messages. I thought something happened to you. Hearing Ma-Yi's words, Li Changsheng remembered that Ma-Yi did send him text messages during this period, and there were a few missed calls. However, he had been in seclusion for half a year. Not to mention Ma-Yi's calls, Li Changsheng didn't even answer Yuyo's calls. There was a boy next to Ma-Yi, who looked to be 18 or 19 years old. At this moment, he was secretly sizing up Li Changsheng. This is Chao Hui, my high school classmate. Ma Yi introduced Li Changsheng to Chao Hui and introduced Li Changsheng's identity. This is Li Changsheng, our classmate. He's a famous person in our school. Hearing Ma Yi's introduction, Chao Hui's eyes clearly showed more interest in Li Changsheng. Changsheng, where are you going? If there's nothing urgent, why don't you come with me? I'll bring you to have some fun. Li Changsheng hesitated and was about to refuse. Ma Yi whispered, Chu family's eldest daughter, Chu Ming, will also be there. With your relationship with Chu family's eldest daughter, don't you want to see her? No wonder Ma Yi said this. At the last Christmas party, Chu Ming went to support Li Changsheng. At that time, Chu Ming, Yi Shuang, Wu Xiaowan, and many other school bells appeared. Li Changsheng was in the limelight, and it lasted for a long time after that. People were guessing which company Li Changsheng's identity was from. He was actually so lucky. Okay, Li Changsheng nodded. There had been a lot of misunderstandings about Chu Ming the last time they'd had dinner together. He felt that he should explain himself. He knows the eldest daughter of the Chu clan, Chu Ming. Chao Hui lowered his voice and asked Ma Yi. The Chu clan was now the true ruler of the Qing province. To be able to know the young lady of the Chu clan was something to be envied. Chu Ming is also studying at Qingzhou University. Isn't it normal for them to know each other? Ma Yi didn't know the true relationship between Chu Ming and Li Changsheng, so he said it casually. Only then did Chao Hui nod his head, revealing a look of understanding. Isn't it the holidays now? Some of our friends in the Qingzhou circle are holding a party. There are people from Qingzhou University and people from other schools. I just asked around and found out that my friend knows Chu Ming. Ma Yi explained as he walked. But the party will only be held at night. Follow me to my house first. My parents are on a business trip, so there's no one at home. Hearing Ma Yi's words, Li Changsheng nodded. They went to the roadside and took a taxi to a high-end neighborhood in Qingzhou. They had long known that Ma Yi's family was not ordinary. A house in this neighborhood cost more than 30,000 yuan per square meter. A house of 100 square meters cost more than 3 million yuan. Of course, it cannot be compared to the Yuan 1 villa where Li Changsheng lived. The three of them entered the house, and Ma Yi hurriedly poured tea for the two of them. Chao Hui took the initiative to chat with Li Changsheng. I'm Ma Yi's high school classmate. My family runs a winery. If you want to buy wine, you can come to me. I'll definitely give you the best price. Hearing the other party's words, Li Changsheng smiled. Chao Hui asked curiously, Brother, what does your family do? He was actually very curious about Li Changsheng. As the saying goes, birds of a feather flock together. For someone like Ma Yi, who was a famous person in high school, none of the people he came into contact with were mediocre. Although Li Changsheng was dressed ordinarily, and there was nothing special about his appearance, since he was Ma Yi's friend, Chao Hui paid more attention to him. My parents have long passed away, and I don't have any relatives. I'm all alone. Then, do you hold any position in the student union in school? Chao Hui knew that Ma Yi was a member of the student union. Since there is nothing special about Li Changsheng's family, it must be in the school's workability, or there must be something unique about his social skills. Unexpectedly, Li Changsheng still shook his head. No, I didn't join any organization in school. So that's the case. Chao Hui smiled, picked up the teacup, and took a sip. It was obvious that his attitude toward Li Changsheng was much more indifferent than before. He could not be blamed for being snobbish. University was originally a time to build connections. If Li Changsheng did not even have something to show, then naturally he would not be able to step into their circle. Things like this circle were strictly hierarchical. If one did not have the qualifications, it would be even more difficult to force their way in. While talking, Ma Yi brought the fruits over and sat directly next to Li Changsheng. He said enthusiastically, Changsheng, you haven't told me what you have been doing for the past 6 months. You didn't even return my calls. Many girls in the class have been asking me about you. After the Christmas party last time, you have become a celebrity in our school. But speaking of which, it was quite dangerous. If Shen Donghai's matter had not been exposed in the Dongfang East window, and we had been caught, we would have been given a big demerit. Speaking of the Christmas party last time, Ma Yi seemed to be very emotional. They had done a big thing, openly confronting the school, and miraculously came out unscathed in the end. Although the protagonist of this big thing was Li Changsheng, Ma Yi was also one of the participants. Every time he talked about it, it made him very proud. Beside him, Chao Hui was confused, but he finally understood that Li Changsheng was not as ordinary as he had described him to be. It was just that the coldness he showed to Li Changsheng just now made him embarrassed to get involved again. He could only suppress the doubts in his heart. At this time, it was already past 5 in the afternoon. The few of them watched TV in a room for more than an hour and went out to eat a mouthful of food before coming together to a high-end KTV luxury box. When Ma Yi and Li Changsheng arrived, there were already many people in the box. As soon as they entered, someone greeted Ma Yi. "You are late. You have to punish yourself by drinking 3 glasses later." The person who spoke was a young man. He was wearing a suit and looked very handsome. He was the kind of person who was born with the demeanor of a leader. He came over and whispered a few words to Ma Yi. Then, he patted his shoulder and waved to Li Changsheng and Chao Hui. "I will go and entertain the others first. You guys take a seat first." Ma Yi and Li Changsheng sat down on the sofa near the door. Chao Hui was puzzled. "Ma Yi, was that Jiang Taiping, young Master Jiang? I heard that his family is in the perfume business. I saw him once when I attended a banquet with my dad last time. I didn't expect you to be friends with him." This banquet was proposed by Jiang Taiping. It is mainly to prepare for the establishment of a youth charity association, Ma Yi said casually. Chapter 488. What's the Youth Charity Association? Li Changsheng and Chao Hui were both interested. The Youth Charity Association was established by Jiang Yitai and a few influential young people in Qingzhou. Nominally, it's for people from wealthy families to donate to those who need help. It's an unofficial organization, but it's also a way to expand their connections in the name of charity. There are so many rich second-generation heirs in Qingzhou. As long as 1/10 of them join his charity association, the huge connections behind each of them will definitely be terrifying. Whether it's fundraising or doing other things, it'll be of great help. It's the same for Jiang Yitai and the other members. That's why I asked you to come along. If you can join, it'll be much more useful than the school's student union. With Changxing's strength, they probably won't reject you. Hearing Ma Yi's words, Chao Hui couldn't help but size up Li Changxing again. Because from Ma Yi's words, it was clear that Li Changxing's identity was not ordinary. Before he could ask, a few people walked over at this time. "Ma Yi, you're here too. Do you know young Master Jiang too?" These people were all young. Ma Yi introduced them as students of the Qingzhou University Student Union. Because Ma Yi held a position in the student union, they could be considered colleagues and classmates. "This is Chao Hui, my high school friend. They're the young masters of Bogu Perfume Company." Ma Yi introduced them. Just as he was about to introduce Li Changsheng, someone in the crowd said, "I know him. He's the most awesome student in Qingzhou University." Hearing his words, even a few men and women around him came over and looked at him in confusion. "What do you mean by the most awesome student?" Chao Hui couldn't help but ask. The school organized a Christmas party, but their class party and the school party went against each other. In the end, they suppressed the school party. That student gave a brief introduction. Chao Hui couldn't help but look at Li Changsheng. "Brother, you actually have such glorious deeds? How did you manage to suppress the school's gala?" Not only Chao Hui, but many people around pricked up their ears. As everyone knew, no matter how wonderful the performance at a class party was, it couldn't be compared to a school party. At this moment, Ma Yi smiled and said, "I haven't had the time to introduce Chao Hui to you." At that time, he invited the celebrity Jian Kaier and many school bells to appear on the stage. It was a gathering of stars, comparable to a large-scale concert. Ma Yi only said a few words. The people around him could fill in that image in their minds. "So it's you. I remember now. No wonder I found you so familiar." The students of Qingzhou University greeted Li Changxing one after another and introduced themselves. "I heard that you have a good relationship with our school's goddess, Wu Shaoan. Is that true?" Brother, I really admire you. That day there were so many beauties. Don't tell me they were all your girlfriends? The surrounding people were all talking at once, one after another. Instantly, Li Chongqing's side became lively. At this moment, the door of the private room was pushed open again. Jiang Yitai looked at the person who walked in with an excited expression. Chu Meng, you're here. The entire room fell into silence. Regardless of status or appearance, Chu Meng was undoubtedly one of the most eye-catching people present. After Chu Meng came in, she almost immediately saw Li Chongsheng sitting at the door. Li Chongsheng raised his head and was about to greet Chu Meng, but before he could say anything, he saw Chu Meng turn her head and look at Jiang Yitai. I'm very honored to be remembered by young Master Jiang. As she spoke, she walked straight into the innermost part of the private room, as if she didn't see Li Chongsheng at all. This made Li Chongsheng's expression slightly awkward. This scene fell into the eyes of the surrounding people, and they all had different expressions. In everyone's opinion, Li Chongsheng wanted to have a relationship with Chu Meng, but she didn't want to talk to him. Chongsheng, is there some misunderstanding between you and Chu Meng? Ma Yi asked Li Chongsheng. Nothing. Li Chongsheng raised his hand and withdrew it. So Ma Yi didn't ask about Chu Meng anymore. Jiang Yitai, who had invited Chu Meng in, glanced at Li Chongsheng intentionally or unintentionally. He had known Chu Meng for many years, so he knew her quite well. Just now, he noticed that the way Chu Meng looked at Li Chongsheng seemed to be different. However, when he saw Li Chongsheng's appearance, he was even more confused because Li Chongsheng didn't seem to have any advantages that could make Chu Meng treat him differently. After that, a few more people arrived, and they were all quite wealthy. Among them, there was a yellow-haired foreigner. Once he came in, many people surrounded him. I heard that he's a student studying in China. He's also a rich second generation abroad and has a good relationship with Jiang Yitai. His family's company and Jiang Yitai's family's company have a lot of business dealings and cooperation. Do you see that? That's the young master of the Yunjiang Group. His family's assets are close to 100 billion. He also bought a limited edition sports car. I heard that there are only 50 of them in the world. And that's Yuna from the Qinhu Group. Her family is involved in international trade because they have a branch in Qingzhou. It's also because of Jiang Yitai's face. Otherwise, it wouldn't be so easy for others to invite her. Chao Hui sat on the side and saw a few young people talking and laughing in the private room. His eyes were filled with envy and admiration as he talked nonstop. Although his family's financial situation was not bad, and he was also a rich second generation, he was much worse than Chu Meng. In this world, there were all kinds of circles, and in each circle, there were always a few outstanding leaders. In this circle of rich second generation, having money naturally meant having glory and confidence. Even Ma Yi felt a little emotional. If only I could be as rich and powerful as them. Indeed, Ma Yi constantly made connections in school and climbed up the social ladder. In fact, it was because his family's background was not strong enough. Otherwise, with people like Chu Meng, even if he did nothing, who knew how many people would come to curry favor with him every day? Apart from people with prominent family backgrounds like Jiang Yitai, Yuna, and Chu Meng, who were fawned upon by everyone, the most popular person was the rich second-generation foreign second-generation, Luo's son, who had business dealings with Jiang Yitai's family. Let me introduce, this is my friend Luo, Senator. He's not only a rich second generation, but he's also a kickboxer. He opened a kickboxing club in Qingzhou. His annual profit is over 1 million. Even I sometimes admire him for having his own company at such a young age. Jiang Yitai obviously admired this foreigner. After hearing his words, there was a burst of praise from the surrounding people. A few girls immediately expressed that they wanted to learn some self-defense skills from Luo Sr. A few boys also expressed that they would go to Luo Sin's kickboxing club in 2 days to get a membership and learn kickboxing. Chapter 489. Being surrounded by a crowd, Luo's son could not help but look smug. No matter the occasion, he was always very popular. He could even predict that after the banquet, There would be a few girls who would add him on WeChat. After that, he would not need to do anything, and they would take the initiative to ask him out. When his family asked him to study in China, he was quite reluctant. After all, it was a foreign country. However, he did not expect that after coming to China, he would realize that it was a paradise for him. The girls here had an almost blind obsession with foreigners. Even the rich young ladies were no exception. They all saw it as an honor to be able to find a foreign boyfriend. Luo-san, I don't know if you've watched kung fu movies. Do you think Chinese kung fu is better or modern martial arts? One of the rich second generation couldn't help but feel displeased when he saw so many girls flocking around Luo's senator as a Chinese. He was always proud of the quintessence of his country. Chinese kung fu? Are you kidding me? How can those fancy moves be compared to the martial arts that have been proven countless times in the ring? Before Luo's son could speak, a man around him could not help but speak. Yeah, what Chinese kung fu? It's just something that the people of China make up. Look at the ring now. Is there any real Chinese kung fu? If Chinese kung fu is really good, why don't they go up and fight with Tyson? A girl also curled her lips, leaving the rich second generation speechless. He did not know how to refute. I also like your kung fu movies very much. However, that's just a movie. As a martial arts fighter, I can responsibly say that the ancient Chinese kung fu is not good at all. It should have been eliminated a long time ago. It's no longer presentable now. As soon as Luo's son finished speaking, everyone agreed. At this moment, a figure stood up. Luo's son, although you're young Master Zhang's friend, you can't belittle Chinese kung fu just because you're a boxer. It was a young man with a square face. He was not very tall, at least a head shorter than Luo's senator. However, he looked very sturdy. It's Zhao Long. I remember that he was very fond of kung fu when he was young. He was a kung fu fan. Someone in the crowd recognized the square-faced young man. After all, most of the people who came today were from the same circle. Many of them were good friends in private. I've heard about it too. It seems that he has a teacher who practices Tai Chi in the past. No one in school could beat him. This Zhao Long was obviously more famous in the circle. Now that he stood out, Luo's son revealed a playful expression. I'm not belittling Chinese martial arts. I'm just stating a fact. A declining martial arts system that only knows how to build a car behind closed doors can't be compared to the top fighting skills in the world today. Although there's a word I don't want to say, I still think I should let you know the reality. Chinese martial arts are really not good. Luo Sen's words immediately attracted many people's agreement. That's right. If we can't do it, we have to face reality. Zhao Long, don't be stubborn. Luo's son has been in the ring before, and he was even the runner-up in a tournament. Although you have been practicing martial arts for several years, I have never seen you in the ring before. Zhao Long's face turned purplish red due to the surrounding people's words. Oof. Lawson, I challenge you. Finally, Zhao Long couldn't help but shout. Does it represent Chinese kung fu? Lawson seemed to have heard a few funny jokes. Do you think that the three-legged cat from China has any fancy moves? We'll know whether it's fancy moves or not after we fight. Okay, I accept your challenge. Luo-san was just about to show off his kung fu, but he didn't expect someone to give him a pillow. Come on. Zhao Long made a standard Taiji fist gesture. However, as soon as he made the gesture, he saw Luo's son dashing forward and landing an uppercut on Zhao Long's chin. With a cracking sound, Zhao Long took 2 steps back. If it wasn't for someone supporting him from behind, he would have fallen to the ground. I said you can't do it. Luo's son shook his head with a look of contempt. Is Chinese kung fu that weak? Looks like we were all fooled by the movie. Yeah, he was knocked down with 1 punch. Isn't Luo's son too strong? No wonder he was mocked. What can he do if he's weak? All kinds of comments from the surrounding people made Zhao Long want to find a hole to hide in. Li Changsheng, who was sitting on the sofa, couldn't help but shake his head. Since Zhao Long was willing to stand up for Chinese kung fu, he could be considered a courageous Chinese. He wasn't like the other guys who were licking Luo Sen's boots. They were the typical example of kneeling on the ground for too long and unable to stand up. But Zhao Long's kung fu was indeed weak. Taiji fist was one of the 3 major internal martial arts in China. It was a high-level martial art that could be practiced to a high level. However, he had only scratched the surface. His posture just now was to use 4 tails to lift 1,000 jin, but he was knocked down with 1 punch. I said that Chinese Kung Fu is not good. Any fighting technique can only be practiced after real combat. Look at the international arena. No Chinese Kung Fu fighter has become the champion. Not a single one. Luo Sun was even more confident in his victory. The surrounding people also nodded. Boxing is just a kind of power that squeezes out the body's potential and stimulates it. The peak period is between 10 to 20 years old, and after 30 years old, it will begin to decline. This kind of Kung Fu can only be called a fighting technique, but my Huaxia's Kung Fu is integrated with Tao. That is the real Kung Fu. Practicing Huaxia's Kung Fu can prolong one's life and cultivate one's body and mind. How can your barbarian fighting techniques compare to it? What's more, you only defeated a half-baked Tai Chi boxer, and you dare to look down on my Huaxia's Kung Fu. Luo Sun said coldly. Li Changsheng walked out of the crowd. Suddenly, the whole room fell into silence. Everyone looked at Li Changsheng in confusion and thought, who is this? Why did he come out at this time? Didn't he see that Zhao Long, who was so strong, was defeated with 1 punch? Jiang Yatai, who was behind Luo Sun, sneered when he saw Li Changsheng. He said, "You've said so much. Why don't you fight with Luo Sun if you have the ability? What kind of ability is that?" As he spoke, Li Changsheng smiled faintly. "That's what I was thinking." Then he looked at Luo Sun and said, "Let me tell you, Western fighting techniques are nothing in front of Chinese Kung Fu." As soon as his voice fell, everyone was dumbfounded. They thought that this weak-looking guy actually dared to challenge Luo. Senator Chu Ming, who was sitting in the innermost part of the room, smiled. If Li Changsheng didn't come out, she was ready to fight. After all, this foreigner belittled Chinese Kung Fu, which was really annoying. Chapter 490. Luo Sun sneered when he saw that Li Changsheng dared to speak such arrogant words. "Do you really want to compete with me?" Indeed, Li Changsheng looked thin and weak. There was a big gap between him and Luo Sun's tall and strong body. "Didn't you look down on Chinese martial arts? Then I'll let you know that your so-called Western martial arts are nothing but trash in front of our Chinese martial arts." Li Changsheng's provocative words again and again caused an uproar in the crowd. Luo Sun's eyes turned cold. "Good boy. Since you said so, I'll have to fulfill your wish." Luo Sun clenched his fists. Chao Hui pulled Ma Yi's sleeve and whispered, "Ma Yi, what should we do? Li Changsheng is too reckless. I heard that he was the runner-up of the World Championship yesterday. He can beat a dozen people by himself." Ma Yi was a little worried when he heard his friend's words. At this time, many people had automatically vacated their seats. Zhao Long, who practiced Tai Chi and was knocked to the ground by Luo Sun, whispered to Li Changsheng, "Friend, you have to be careful. This guy is very strong." Li Changsheng smiled when he heard his kind reminder. Then, he hooked his finger at Luo Sun and said, "Do it. I only need 1 hand to deal with a foreigner like you." He put his other hand behind his back as he spoke. Everyone's eyes widened when they heard that. "Crazy, he's too crazy. Boy, how dare you look down on me?" Luo Sun was finally angry. He took a step forward and punched Li Changsheng's cheek. It was a straightforward and fierce punch. It was also very imposing. However, as soon as his fist got close, Li Changsheng grabbed his wrist and pulled hard. Luo Sun's huge body suddenly leaned forward. At the same time, Li Changsheng kneed his lower abdomen. Bang! Luo Sun spat out blood, and his eyes became hazy with tears. The next moment, Li Changsheng landed a series of knee strikes on his lower abdomen. By the time Li Changsheng took a step back and released Lawson's wrist, Lawson was rolling on the ground. The crowd was dumbfounded. Was it that simple? All right. Zhao Long was the first to clap. Although he had only learned the basics of Chinese martial arts, he was naturally excited to see his beloved martial arts win. "Good job, Changsheng." Ma Yi also shouted loudly. Chow Hui couldn't help but clap as well. As for those who were kneeling and licking Lawson's boots, their faces turned awkward. Just now, many of them had said that Guishu was just a showy but impractical martial art. Jiang Yitai immediately rushed forward to help Luo's son up. "Are you okay?" "I'm fine." Luo's son clutched his lower abdomen. His face was pale as large beads of sweat dripped down from his forehead. This was the result of Li Changsheng holding back. Otherwise, if he had used 1% of his strength, he would have turned Luo's son into a corpse. "How is it? Do you still think that Guishu is just a showy but impractical martial art?" Li Changsheng looked at Luo's son with a faint smile. Although he was not as tall as Luo's son, he was incomparably tall in the eyes of the crowd. "I have underestimated Chinese martial arts. I apologize to you." Luo's son bowed deeply to Li Changsheng. Li Changsheng could be said to be the strongest person he had ever met in his life. The golden age of martial arts was between 17 and 30 years old. After this age, one would begin to decline. Unlike Guishu, the older one was, the stronger one would be. Therefore, even Luo Sen's coach was no match for Luo San in a real fight. However, the speed and strength of Li Changsheng's moves just now still made him fearful. "It's good that you know. China has tens of thousands of years of history since ancient times. It's not something a barbarian like you can compare to." After Li Changsheng finished speaking, he directly said goodbye to Ma Yi and turned to walk out of the bar. At such a gathering, a group of Chinese people was fawning over a foreign devil. It made him feel a little disgusted. Looking at Li Changsheng's back as he left, he had the aura of a chivalrous man who could kill people in 10 steps without leaving a trace. Many of the women in the bar showed signs of admiration. Xu Ming originally wanted to stand up and say a few words to Li Changsheng. However, before she could speak, Li Changsheng had already left. "What's with the arrogance? Isn't it just some martial arts?" Jiang Yitai said indignantly. He then smiled at Xu Ming. "Xu Ming, don't worry about him. Let's have a toast." As he spoke, he raised the glass in his hand. However, he was pushed aside by Xu Ming. When he walked out of the bar, the sky was already filled with stars. The cool night breeze gradually calmed his heart. Li Changsheng went to the side and found a shared bicycle. He rode the bicycle and wobbled back to his villa. Behind him, 2 minutes after Li Changsheng left, a beautiful figure stumbled out. Who else could it be but Xu Ming? Xu Ming saw Li Changsheng's figure on the opposite side of the road. She hurriedly rushed over and loudly shouted Li Changsheng's name. Just then, the roaring sound of a passing car's horn drowned out all of her voices. Seeing the cars coming and going, she stumbled and ran toward the overpass. However, she was wearing high heels today. After running for a few steps, she twisted her ankle and fell to the ground. Looking at her red ankle, Xu Ming couldn't help but feel wronged. Her eyes turned red. She looked up at Li Changsheng's figure that was gradually disappearing. She took off her high heels and held them in her hands. Then, she ran with all her might onto the overpass and shouted loudly, "Li Changsheng." Her voice traveled quite far from the overpass. However, it was quickly drowned out by the sound of car horns. Under the overpass, there was a surging flow of cars and flashing neon lights. However, Li Changsheng's bicycle was nowhere to be seen. Finally, Xu Ming sat down on the overpass in a daze. She cursed loudly. "Li Changsheng, you bastard! You son of a bitch!" After a while, she wiped the tears off her face and put on the high heels. Just as she was about to stand up, she raised her head and saw a figure pushing a bicycle. The figure was quietly looking at her with a smile on his face. Xu Ming's expression suddenly froze. She saw a hand reach over her. She sniffled and humphed softly, but still put her hand on it. "Let's go. The coffee shop should still be open. Let's go get a drink." Hearing Li Changsheng's words, Xu Ming's tears turned into laughter. This night was a story of youth. It would eventually become an unforgettable memory between lovers. Many years later, Xu Ming would still think that if she hadn't chased after him, if Li Changsheng hadn't returned, would the story have ended differently? Chapter 491. After Li Changsheng returned to the villa, he received a call from Ma Yi. He was very sorry about what happened at today's party. Li Changsheng smiled and said that it was fine. It was not his fault. He just couldn't stand that foreigner belittling Chinese martial arts. The next day, when Li Changsheng came to the bar again, he saw that the sports car was still parked there. He knew that Luo Dan must be inside. As soon as he walked to the door, he was stopped by the waiter at the door. After Li Changsheng's trouble yesterday, everyone in the bar basically knew him. "I'm going to see your boss." Hearing Li Changsheng's words, the two waiters at the door showed some helplessness in their eyes. They also saw Li Changsheng's skills yesterday. They all knew that this guy was not only the bar owner's pursuer, but his strength was also very unusual. He gave a look to a colleague next to him, and the waiter hurried inside. Soon, a group of aggressive strong men came out. The leader was the man named De Zhuang, who had blocked Li Changsheng's path the day before. "Kid, you hurt my brother yesterday, and you dare to come today. I'll teach you a lesson." With that, he clenched his fist and walked to Li Changsheng with a sneer. His eyes were full of fierceness. If the manager hadn't stopped him in time yesterday, he would have already fought with Li Changsheng. He originally thought that Li Changsheng would not come here again after leaving, which made him feel quite regretful, especially when he saw that his brother was slightly injured by Li Changsheng yesterday. He wanted to teach Li Changsheng a lesson. So when the waiter went in and said that the troublemaker from yesterday was here again, he was the first to rush out. "I want to see your boss. I don't have time to waste time with you." Li Changsheng reached out and pushed the strong man aside and walked inside. The strong man was pushed back 2 steps by Li Changsheng. Under the eyes of everyone, he felt very embarrassed. He immediately became angry and raised his fist to hit Li Changsheng. "Brad, if you want to see our boss, you'll have to get through me first." This burly man was a martial artist. His moves were not bad, and his punch was quite imposing. Seeing that his fist was about to hit the back of Li Changsheng's head, a smile appeared on his face. However, in the next moment, Li Changsheng's figure suddenly disappeared from sight, and the brawny man's punch hit nothing but air. Just as he was pondering over the matter, he felt an intense pain coming from his back, and a powerful force assaulted him. He lost his balance and fell to the ground. When he tried to get up, a big foot stepped on his head. "I told you, you're not qualified. Are you convinced now?" Hearing Li Changsheng's words, the brawny man struggled to get up from the ground. "Looks like you really won't shed tears until you see the coffin." Li Changsheng shook his head, raised his foot, and suddenly kicked out. He kicked the brawny man's lower abdomen. The man's body was stuck in the ground and flew 7 to 8 meters away, hitting the stairs behind him. At this time, Li Changsheng clapped his hands and was about to walk inside when he saw another group of people walking out. The leader was the bar owner, Luo Dan. Luo Dan was wearing a blue cheongsam today, which outlined her exquisite figure. She had obviously dressed up carefully, which made her look even more radiant. After she came out, she looked coldly at Li Changsheng and said, "Why are you here again? Who are you? Why do you come to my bar time and time again to make trouble?" Hearing her words, Li Changsheng smiled. "I'm Li Changsheng. As for making trouble in your bar, you've misunderstood. I'm here to look for you. Or rather, I'm here to pursue you." Hearing Li Changsheng's words, Luo Dan couldn't help but frown. Originally, with her power, she didn't need to take a young man in his 20s seriously. However, Li Changsheng's strength was not ordinary, so she didn't dare to make a move on Li Changsheng easily. Moreover, Li Changsheng didn't really threaten her. "This young man's background is mysterious. He said that he's pursuing me. How can there be such a way to pursue me?" Luo Dan thought silently in her heart. "Why don't I try him?" Thinking of this, Luo Dan's face suddenly showed a smile. "Since you want to pursue me, I wonder if you're willing to be my escort for once." Li Changsheng looked Luo Dan up and down a few times. Seeing that she was dressed very formally today, it seemed that she was going to an important occasion. "My pleasure." Hearing Li Changsheng's words, Luo Dan smiled and made a gesture of invitation. "Please get in the car." The extended version of Rolls-Royce drove over, and there was already a waiter in front who took the initiative to open the door. "I don't know who this person is. Are you really going to take him?" The manager behind him said, with some worry. "Don't worry." Luo Dan gave him a reassuring look and then took the initiative to sit in the back of the Rolls-Royce. A waiter opened the door of the front passenger seat and motioned Li Changsheng to sit in the front passenger seat. The back seat had always been the boss's seat. Unexpectedly, Li Changsheng didn't pay attention to the waiter at all. Instead, he opened the door of the back seat and sat directly next to Luo Dan. The waiter was suddenly a little dumbfounded. This was too shameless. The back seat was his boss's seat. How could a strange man sit in it? Even the chauffeur in front turned around to look at Li Changsheng in surprise. Luo Dan's expression didn't change from beginning to end. She ordered the driver in front, drive. The driver naturally didn't dare to ask more and drove forward. From the rearview mirror, it could be seen that there were several cars following behind. This lineup clearly indicated that the event Luo Dan was going to participate in was not ordinary. "You didn't even ask me what I was going to take you to, and you dare to sit in it. Aren't you afraid that I'll find a deserted place in the wilderness to dig a hole and bury you?" Sitting in the car, Luo Dan held a magazine in her hand and flipped through it in boredom. When she finished flipping through the entire magazine, she finally couldn't help but look at Li Changsheng again. The first time she saw Li Changsheng, the first impression he gave her was that he was ordinary. He was the kind of person that couldn't be found in a crowd. However, Li Changsheng's strength to send her subordinate flying in one move made her dare not underestimate him. Especially at this time of panic, she didn't dare to take it lightly. This time, sitting in the car with Li Changsheng and having close contact with him, she felt more of an indifferent attitude from Li Changsheng, as if he didn't take everything to heart. This made her a little interested, and she took the initiative to start a conversation with Li Changsheng. "I really don't care about your subordinates. Even if they all work together, they are not my opponent." Hearing Li Changsheng's extremely arrogant words, Luo Dan couldn't help but curl her lips and said, "You underestimate my subordinates too much." You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.